All right, we're live.
All
Uh,
right.
Welcome back to the Trial and Error podcast. I'm Brian.
Fearless here.
On today's episode, we're going to talk about the side hustle and when it's time for you to pivot from your side hustle to a full time hustle and what that looks like. So
Mhm.
that's what we got for you on today's episode. I'm gonna go ahead and roll the intro, and then we're gonna get into this thing.
Hmm.
All right, we're back. So, um, in the past couple episodes, and it's all been kind of building up to this. We've talked about failure till you succeed. We've talked about the pivot, and now we're talking about when's the time to flip that side hustle into a full time operation. And
Mhm.
so that's kind of what we're going to get into. And so one of the first things is, and we want to shout out our viewers. We're nailing down our times and everything. Making sure that we're trying to be on the consistent time. 10:30 is going to be our lock-in time, and that's going to be the time we lock in on stuff. And so 10:30 on Tuesdays, this is where you can find us. And so if you're watching live, shout out to y'all. We really appreciate y'all. Make sure if you're seeing us on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, because then that lets us know that we're building an audience and we're really connecting with you. Okay. So
Hmm.
that's what we got. Fearless, you got any shout outs at the top?
No, not at this moment.
Okay, cool.
Let's just jump into it, sir.
All right. So we're going to get into discussing the side hustle, and we're going to use ourselves as an example of when was the right time for us. And I'm going to use myself as an example of what not to do. Fearless, maybe you could come on the other side and lay out what your process is. But we're going
Mhm.
to talk about when we decided to make that side hustle full time. So, why don't we go like it's kind of like the feedback sandwich. We want to start out with the positive first. Fearless, how did you know, and with any side hustle that you developed into a full-time thing, how did you make that decision? What was that path looking like for you?
So there was a couple of different times. Hold on one second. All right, sorry about that. So there was a couple of different times that I did it. I did it the first time when I was in my early 20s, and I was in this network marketing company, right? And one of the things that they talked about within network marketing was, Jesus, hold on one second, man.
That's all right. We're live television, y'all, and this is kind of how it goes when you're live. The kids are home. My kids are both home on spring break, so you're gonna hear them moving and doing stuff in the background. So,
Thank you, man. Sorry about that.
oh, no problem.
So I got somebody here to fix up for me. Anyway, so it was I was in this network marketing company in my early 20s, and uh, in network marketing they always tell you just kind of jump off that proverbial bridge, leap down, see what happens, whatever, right? So I'm like, all right, yeah, cool. So I went into my employer and I'm like, hey, I quit. 2 weeks notice, whatever. And I went in and I told my upline, my mentor at that time, hey man, I went ahead and quit my job because I'm gonna go do this full time. And he said, you did what? I said, yeah, I just walked in to quit my job. He was like, fearless, that wasn't a good idea. And I'm like, well, no, y'all, you guys tell us all the time that if you're serious about this, jump into it both feet. Well, I'll quit my job, so we're gonna put everything y'all been saying to the test. That man begged me to go back to work, and guess what? Eventually I did,
Mhm.
because that money was not coming the same way that they prescribed that it actually would. So that was the first time that I just jumped off that proverbial bridge and tried to grow my wings on the way down. And I hit every branch going down. And then I found a rope to go climb my fat ass back up that hill. So that's how that works.
All right. So my journey is a little bit different, but there's some similarities. So um what happened was I was working and I had landed my essentially my dream job. Before I went solo, um, I was in residential care for kids. And so I worked all the way up to the top of my industry, top of my field, essentially. And I had my own program. I had staff reporting to me, 24 hours, 7 days a week. We ran all day, all night, every weekend, holiday, whole nine. I was doing $1 million budgets. I was doing all this other stuff and really kind of living where I wanted to go. And it was hectic the first year I was learning. But one of the things that happened was my mom died during that time.
Mm.
And there's a couple of things that plays into this. So one, all the energy I had in me and all the passion and drive I had for working with kids and developing staff and stuff overnight just went out of me. And I immediately went into it was almost like a form of burnout. And I went from this is what I want to do, this is my dream job to I don't want to be here on a day-to-day basis. One of the things that played into it was every time I had to go to work, my mom died in the hospital right across the street from my office. And every single time I went to work, it was putting me in panic attacks, it was putting me in a bad place, and it was like almost re-traumatizing every single time. At the time, I didn't know that was just a natural life. And so I'm like, I had to kind of talk to my staff. And one of the things I always did was with my staff, I told them, if you ever reach the point of burnout, when you're working with kids and families, if you ever reach that point of burnout where you feel like it's the point of no return, you need to take a break and kind of walk away or find something different to do, because your burnout's going to affect these families forever. So either you need to take an extended break or walk away. I decided to walk away. Now the whole time I had been teaching myself marketing, website design. I knew stuff from broadcasting on the college radio. And so I had a good base under me. And so my pivot immediately was, okay, so I'm gonna buy a franchise. I had a family friend that was trying to get out of a franchise. And I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna work my way into the franchise and buy, and we had kind of discussed the off ramp of me buying the store and taking over for him. And I got in there and I did it for like 6 months. And I'm like, I don't want to do this right now. It was not wanting to do it. And hindsight being 2020, I should have taken my boss's offer to take 6 months off and take kind of a sabbatical and get my head right and come back in. Because I was still doing all the stuff I know in the background. I was still teaching myself. I was still doing some side stuff. And so I could have given myself a longer off ramp and stacked my money and then made the transition slowly instead of jumping in with both feet and seeing what happened. It worked out okay. Like I got a full immersion. It was like immersion therapy. I got a full immersion in marketing on the front end, marketing for a brick and mortar, selling physical products and doing all that other stuff and building out marketing strategies and the whole nine. But I could have done that and still had the same income coming in.
Hey, Brian?
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. You keep stop that. I think how's your connection?
My connection looks good. Like you blink too, so I don't know what's going on.
Okay.
So we'll see. We'll figure out which end that this is on.
Yeah, sure.
But my cautionary tale is, continue on your path, and the time you want to pivot and the time you want to start considering whether you want to drop it is if your main job is costing you money. And it's costing you money and opportunities on your side business. So that's my cautionary tale.
So when you say that it's costing you money, because I think that you had cut out at that point, I didn't hear. What did you mean by if it's costing you money? What do you mean?
So if if your side business is profitable to a point where your main job is preventing you from earning your income and limiting how much you can earn, and you've kind of almost replaced it, and now your main job is in the way of your primary your main job is in the middle of your side, and your main job is preventing your side hustle from growing, and it's enough to supplement your income. That's when you need to start considering it, where you're losing money by going to your job.
Okay. So the one thing that I would ask you, I guess from a coaching standpoint is how long ago how old were you when your mom passed on?
I was 36.
36. Okay. So all of this started happening um, like after she passed on, and then you were working, and then you just kind of said, you know what, no, I'm good. Um, no thanks, or whatever.
Yeah,
Then you kind of lost that passion, if you will, for doing what you're doing, right?
right.
Okay. So I just want to kind of understand that. So the other part of losing money, when you talk about that, how long, or do you have like a certain um time span of how long you need to be making this amount of money before you quit your job?
Um, I don't know if it's a specific time span. I'm looking at repetition. So if you're consistently month over month out earning your main job or equal to your main job, then that's where you can start considering. When I took my leap, I had money in the bank. You
Mm,
know, I had a decent amount of money in the bank before I made that leap, and so I was a little bit more insulated from that decision, the shockwaves of that decision. But if you are looking to take that leap, I would say you want to make sure that you have what we would call a durable business, where it's constant money coming, where the money's constant coming in, and you're able to not only reinvest in the business but also invest in yourself and put money in your pocket. Um, and so I would say where it's a repeatable thing. So you're not just going to want to go, okay, 1 month we're profitable, now's the time to step away. 2 months we're profitable, now's the time to step away.
yeah. So for myself, I usually would tell anybody give it at least a minimum of 3 months of consistency there, because at 3 months, you know that you have a pattern. If that makes any sense, right?
Right.
So if I'm making, 5,000, if I made $5,000 on in January, and then in March I made another 5,000, and then in um, January, February, March, or whatever, I made maybe 3,200 or something like that. You still have some type of a baseline to go off of. So the month after, if I go back up to 5 or I'm at 6, then that means I know what I'm doing enough to sustain what I already have going on. You know what I mean? So that it's not just a fluke. So one of the things that I love talking about is pattern recognition. And pattern recognition is understanding that the first time something happens is just an event, right?
Mhm.
It just happens. Second time something happens, it's noteworthy, which basically means that it's happened before. So take a note. Third time, it's a pattern because now you have two other times that this has happened before. So anytime that something happens repetitively 3 different times and 3 different distinctions, then you know that it's a pattern. So when we're talking about money wise or whatever, that's kind of what I'm looking at is where's that distinction at? Where's that pattern at that I can consistently keep counting on in what I'm doing? Another thing, excuse me, with this is I personally, I wouldn't quit unless, don't quit your job unless you absolutely have to. I'm not talking about that the money is, that your side hustle is somehow impeding over here, because let's be frank. Let's be honest. Most of y'all's side hustles ain't making that much, because if it was, we wouldn't even be talking about this. What we're talking about for the most part is why you should stay at your job, right?
Yeah.
Because now, and let's be honest, some of y'all don't need to be working for other people. You need to have somebody else telling you what to do because you suck at your own decisions. Like, let's just put it out there. Not all of us are like this, but even if you have some type of accountability partner, a friend, a mentor, something where somebody is helping to hold you accountable and responsible for the stuff that comes out of your mouth and the things that you're doing. So, and to me, this is always a dangerous topic because I think that there's so many people that will look at this and say, you know what? Yeah, I made a couple dollars doing XYZ. You know, maybe I should start thinking about pivoting into doing this thing full time. Some of y'all, that's exactly what you need to do, but most of you, not at all. And the way that the IRS sees your hobby versus an actual income is if you don't make, let's say it's like $5,000. I think that that's even too high, but let's say that it's $5,000. Whether people understand it or not, most people are not even making that off their side hustle. They're not, right? Especially depending on what it is that you do. So if you're not even making the bare minimum for it to even be called a business, the IRS doesn't see it as a business. They see it as a hobby. Like, and that's honest to God truth.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing, like I said, though, you have to be focused on. I would tell you, if anything, take the skills that you learn from your hobby, put them towards the job that you have, and do better at that. Like, that's what I would tell a person, honestly. And again, I don't know about you, but people have asked me this so many times throughout my life in general, what the different businesses I've had that I've had to either close down or walk away from or whatever. But that's the one thing that I love telling people is like, dude, don't quit your job. Stay there. Stay until you have to leave. Like until it's so prominent that like you have to walk away. Don't leave. Stay right there. Don't go nowhere. You know what I mean? That's what I would say to people, personally.
And so my thing is, and this is what we're going to get into on the stream, is you got to lay, like, there's a foundation you got to lay, right?
Yes,
and
very much.
There's a couple of, like, so I had two major things. So when I first started I Sell Words, this is when I was working in the franchise I was going to buy. And first thing I had to do was I had to go out and get an LLC for my consulting business. Because initially I was taking it as a sole prop, but in order to get some of the pass-through benefits or whatnot, and I'm not going to get on all the taxation stuff, I went ahead, I ponied up the money, got a lawyer, they formed the LLC for I Sell Words and formed it as a marketing and printing publishing kind of company.
Would you mind, before you continue, because I know my friend told me that I interrupt you quite a bit, and I'm trying my best not to. But could you, and this is going towards your story, could you explain what an LLC is? You ain't got to go all the way into the tax information, but there's a lot of people, unfortunately, that think that an LLC is just something that you just go get, and there's nothing else attached to it. So could you explain that, and then go on with your story, please?
So
here you go, Jessica.
So an LLC is it is basically a container for your business that in case somebody wants to sue you, they can go after the assets of that LLC as the business in that container, but they can't go after your personal money unless you have some pretty egregious things or there's a lot of where you're not separating the two things, where you are spending right out of your LLC's personal account for your personal stuff. So basically think of it as a box that your personal business lives in. And if somebody ever sues you, which as you grow bigger, eventually it may happen. So, but it prevents them from going after everything. They can only go after what's in the LLC, and the LLC is a standalone entity. It exists as a separate thing from you that you own. And there's a lot of different things you can do. If you want to start playing the higher end game, you can have a shell corporation that's an LLC with a bunch of baby LLCs under it to kind of contain all that stuff. And so it allows you a lot of room and allows a normal person to operate as a business entity. They call it a disregarded entity, in kind of the tax terms.
And I mean, that's also one of the things that a lot of lawyers will actually do too, to hide or to put certain things, whatever. So like if you have an LLC that's I Sell Words, but then there's another LLC for the I, then there's another LLC for the sell, then there's another one for like words, and you can literally pull all your money and all these little different shell companies that majority of them have absolutely nothing in them.
Right.
or whatever. They have boards, they have all this stuff, whatever. So it's kind of like a whack-a-mole for your business for the most part. So, and it, like you just said, it protects you from the. It protects you and your assets for
Right.
the most part. Anything that's not tied to the business directly. Now, when you if you are a self, what is it? My brain just went blank.
Sole proprietor.
If you're a sole proprietor, you are asked out. Plain and simple. Like, I don't know what it is that you sell or what it is that you do, but there is no protection for you at all. So if they sue you, they're suing you,
Right.
not your business, not your company, you, because you are the company. So that's the reason why it's so important to get incorporated or to create an LLC or whatever. But this is also what I would tell you. Do not create an LLC if you ain't got a business.
Right.
Like off top. Don't do that. Make some money first.
Yeah.
Then create the LLC. If you haven't made any money and you don't even know if you're going to, don't create an LLC. Don't do that. Yeah, don't even do that. But go ahead, sir.
And there's other aspects of it, like it for real estate plays. If you're going into real estate and doing stuff like that, real estate management, it makes sense for an LLC. If your family has assets that are going to get passed down from one person to another, you might want to talk about a lawyer to put some kind of corporation together so that you have the ability to disperse assets and control things. So there's a couple of different vehicles for it, but it kind of all revolves around the LLC. And then once you start playing a higher game, that's when you start going into the more, corporate structure. But LLC is limited liability corporation. It limits your liability from being sued. And so, and a lot of times when you start a business account, and I know there's a million YouTubers talking about the magic of business credit. And I'm telling you, it is magic. But the magic of business credit, you have to have a business set up. You have to have a business account set up. You have to have accounting set up on that business account. And so there's a lot of different components that it takes before you step off the branch and step off into the deep end of going out on your own way. And so I'm looking at this stuff will take a number of months, not only with the setting up the cash flow of the business, but also all the structures underneath to protect you. And I know that there are barbers out there that don't have LLCs to protect them. Y'all can get sued. You see in other states where they got somebody who says, I do veneers. You can get sued behind this stuff. And when you don't have some kind of protection, their ability to go after your money is infinite. And they can go after you, they can go after your family, they can go after your friends, they can go after anybody that's kind of connected to you if you don't have some kind of container for your business. And so that's really what this entire thing is. And it takes time. I've gotten to a point where I can I have enough knowledge. I have a couple of LLCs set up for different businesses I'm tied into. I can draft a lot of my own paperwork for LLC stuff. But that takes a while to have that kind of knowledge. But I have my templates and stuff like that. And even then, if my business is sufficiently complex or what I'm trying to do has enough nuances to it, I'm still paying up to go to a lawyer to help me form that thing. So,
right. And another thing that you had just mentioned was tax. What people tell you to have your business create a to get loans and stuff for your business. And you said that that's magic. Listen, one of the things that I noticed, and again, when you own a business, in a real business, you go into any bank. Matter of fact, I would tell any of you to do this. Go into a bank after you have a business. Go into a bank and tell them that you want a line of credit for your company or that you want a loan for your company. They're going to ask you a couple questions. One of those questions are, can we see your finances? Do your business? That's one of the questions they're going to ask. How long have you been in business is what they're going to ask. They're going to ask you that. And they're also going to say, can I see your social security number? Like, whether people understand that or not, that's what they're going to ask you.
Yep.
Now you may be thinking, give me a second, I'm clearing my throat. Why are they asking to see your social security number? Why can't you just look at my business and see that I got money and loan me some money? Anything before a 740, they will only borrow you out $25,000. That's it. That's all. Anything 740 and over. So if you got 741, this, that, the other, they'll loan you basically whatever amount that you're asking for, right? So when we talk about financial literacy, especially credit literacy, it means to read and write and understand what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So when people get on there, I've seen TK Kirkland get on there. I've seen several entertainers get on there and tell you, go open yourself an LLC, go do this, go do that. Ladies and gentlemen, they are fucking lying to you. It is a lie. A lie. Go to a bank and go ask them if you can do any of the stuff that they're talking about. And every single one of them will tell you, no, It does not work like that whatsoever. I know because I took out that loan. I know because right now, my credit's like 800. But at that time, my credit went down from I think it was like 780. And I took like a 50-point hit. I forgot what it was for. But it dropped my stuff to like 725. I'm still over 700, so who cares, right? I go into the bank, ask for a bank loan for my business. They're like, your credit's not high enough. I'm like, what? How is my credit not high enough? And then they explain it to me, right? Now I went to one bank for that. Then I went to another bank because I'm like, man, maybe some finagling stuff they got going on over there. Mm-hmm. I go to a different bank and ask them the same stuff. They tell me the same exact stuff, and then they broke it down to how it works. And I explained to them. Matter of fact, I even pulled out my phone and showed them some of the videos I had been watching, and they said, you'd be surprised how many people have no idea that they're being lied to. That's not real whatsoever. So when you're asking or looking for a loan for your business, I'm telling you right now, you can get it, but it's based on your credit. It's based on your social security number, not your EIN, not your tax identification and all that. It's based on you. And the problem is that we've been fed so much shit that we don't know that because people that we love and trust and support consistently keep feeding us bad news. And again, somebody like TK Kirkland, whomever, they have amazing credit because they got the money. They have the $1 credit ratio. So if they wanted to go build some shit, they can do so. Right. But the average dude who just got his car repossessed, who went from a 680 and now down to a 600, he can't go to the bank and go ask for nothing, especially if you ain't got, if you don't have any assets. At that point, homie, you're a liability. Why would I loan you anything for either you personally, right, to get a line of credit or a loan, but whatever so-called business that you own? Yeah, no, thank you. Now we're good.
Right. And that's the thing. I mean, your LLC has to have some age behind it before you can start doing some of the stuff, and you got to show a level of consistency.
Yes. So, and they're looking for years. Yeah. They're not looking for months. They're looking for years.
Right.
Years. Like off top. They're looking for years.
Like the CMA LLC, Coach Mo Athletics LLC that I co-own, that's 10 years old. And year over year, we're increasing year over year. And so that builds a specific line of repetition where they're like, oh, this is an actual business. And the reality is some of y'all have the ability to scale fast. It's about having the discipline to scale fast. Because one thing, and I'm getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but this is what I need to point out. Sometimes it's not the lack of business that dooms early stage businesses. It's having too much business and not being able to fulfill on what you need to get done. And so that can hurt you too if you don't have if you don't have the ability to scale fast enough. And so it's a double-edged sword. And a lot of times people think that I got this LLC and money's flowing in. I can be able to do X, Y, and Z. Sometimes that money flowing in is okay. So you need to reinvest this into the business and basically build out your ability to do more business as opposed to putting into your bank account. So
you know,
the other side.
I love what you're talking about in that. And I know that we're kind of pivoting, but we're not pivoting because it's kind of like an apropos type of thing or whatever, which basically means we're still circling the same ballpark. We're just not on the same base. But one of the things that you just talked about was the fact that some of the banks may not mess with you at all. But here's another cool thing about LLCs in general. And again, I had to learn this the hard way. When you have an LLC and you have a bank account specifically geared towards your business, what the banks usually do, is that they pull a banker off and they give them directly to you. Mm-hmm. So you usually have your own banker. So if you need a loan, if you need any of that stuff, they'll work with you to get that for you. And so therefore you have a partnership with the bank. And that is imperative. That is so important whenever you're picking and choosing banks to put your money in. You have to ask them, like, do you guys support small businesses? How much do you support small businesses? What do you do to support small businesses? And some banks, some of the bigger ones help out more so than the smaller ones. Right. I mean, depending on what we're talking about. It's let me say, hold on one second. One of the things that I noticed early on was when people talk about having a bank account through a credit union, and they'll tell you, yeah, credit unions, they're notorious for loaning money to small businesses and this and the other, helping people get off the ground, helping you build your credit. In all actuality, it doesn't work that way. And there's actually more bullshit that goes on with these small credit unions than you'd ever actually think. Most people don't know that because they don't read about that shit. You see what's behind me on these goddamn books? That is not a green screen, ladies and gentlemen. That's not green screen. That's real. Not green screen. Real. So there's a book called Lending to the Other Half. And that's what they talk about. Excuse me, I think it's called Banking the way the other half banks or something like that. Brian, you might want to check that out if you can.
Okay.
But there's a book on it. I think like Banking the way the other half does or something like that. But that's all they talked about was banking industry and how they help certain members of our community and other members of our community they could care less about, like one way or the other. And that's where these small credit unions got the reputation to start. Oh my gosh, like, yeah, they just go to Saks Credit Union, or do you see what I'm saying?
I know. Okay, like, I've seen her TED talk, and so
yeah, show me the book.
All right, hold on.
You show it to me.
Yeah, I'm finding a good version of it.
All right, thank you. But like when I read that, I was like, wow, because again, there's that information that we don't know about. So we have no idea that all these other things are what is the word? Are being played against us. Uh-huh. And we're sitting there thinking that, oh man, all banks are the same. No, they are not. And so again, when you have your own business, when you're building a business, yeah, there it is. There it is. There it is.
Yep.
Yeah. I have the one up on top on the left hand corner. That's the book that I have. Because I think that there's a couple different versions of it, but that's the one I had. That book was absolutely amazing. And you would think that it was boring as shit. Mm-hmm. It's not. There's another book called is it called Banking with the 1%? What is it called? Like something to 1%. How the 1% lives or whatever. And it's just like when people talk about hold on, shit, Jessica told me I get off on these tangents. I'm gonna come back to where I'm at. But apropos, I'm still circling. It's just like with passports, for instance, right? Most people say that you can't travel outside the U.S. without a passport. That's bullshit. Yes, you can. Depending on who you are and how much money you have, yes, you can. That's all I'm saying. So a lot of this is based on like my personal channel talks about, where perspective is everything. And in this case, perspective is everything. So that's all I was kind of going with that. Partnerships with banks. If you form an LLC, you best have a partnership with a bank. And like I said, interview these banks like you would anybody else.
Yep.
Because at the end of the day, they work for you. It is not the other way around.
So if you get a chance, y'all, it looks like Mr. I forgot.
I couldn't pronounce that woman's last name to save my life, champ.
I'm gonna put it in the. I'm gonna go ahead and put it in the comments. Look for her TED talk. It's about postal. It gives the history of postal banking and the importance of post offices in regards to banking in impoverished neighborhoods.
Oh man, that's some good stuff. Yeah,
it gives a whole layout of that, but it gives a little bit of the groundwork. One of the things is, you guys, when we talk about this stuff, there's a higher end of the business spectrum that we're talking about and the beginning end. If you're on the beginning end of if you're on the beginning end of this stuff, your LLC's age makes all the difference in the world. How much money you're bringing in year over year or quarter after quarter makes a difference, and the ability to reinvest. And so a lot of that stuff matters. And unfortunately, you're not getting a lot of that solid information on YouTube. There's one that I keep bringing up. Fearless, I keep bringing it up. But one of the things I see on, what is it? The 850 credit score, $2 million or $4,000 a week. I keep bringing that up because that is an earworm in my thinking, because that's endemic of what social media has done to our brains in terms of how we talk about business and stuff like that. And yeah, there's nuances and stuff, and people are going to have different perspectives and and all this other stuff. I'm here to tell you, from a business owner standpoint, and Fearless may disagree with me. From a business owner standpoint, if you're asking me, 850 credit score, $2 million or $4,000 a week, I'm going to take the $2 million in cash. And a lot of that's the time value of money, because I can put that $2 million to work a little bit faster, get it into some interest-bearing accounts and stuff, and see a return a little bit faster. $4,000 a week is good, but it's going to take, I think it was like 16 years to match that $2 million. And by the time that 16 years rolls around, that $2 million may be worth $1 million. And so that's my line of thinking on it. And it goes into a lot of the woo-woo that people fall into on social media when they listen to these influencers and think that just because this credit score is here, but you have no other underlying things, like especially if you're a business owner, you have no other underlying things. The 850 credit score is amazing, and you can leverage it if you have a really solid business underneath it. But if we're talking cash for the average citizen, cash me out. I'll take $2 million in cash in hand right now. And so, but it goes into a lot of the way that our brains are thinking about business, and how social media gets us hooked on these side hustles and then feeds us bullshit about how we maintain them. And so that's the theme here. And that's what we're trying to debunk here. We're trying to debunk a lot of the mythology about the process of getting side hustle, starting one, and what it takes to transition into a full-time business, because there are steps that you got to take. And that's what this episode's about.
Okay, keep going on that, because I'm about to, because I don't want to say anything quite yet on that. I want to check something out right quick.
Gotcha.
Because give me a second. Keep going.
So
keep going.
Well, we already, to be honest with Fearless, we already attacked a lot of the stuff that's next on our format for the show. But We talked about growth and stability. Is your side hustle ready? Do you have consistent monthly revenue? Do you have growing demand and repeat customers? Are you still in the new? If you're still in new, where we're brand new and everybody's amazed of how new we are, and we're getting business on the strength of being new, that might not be a good time to say, okay, so now we're going to jump full head into it, because once the newness wears off, the systems and the consistency and your way you manage clients and your client retention and all that other stuff, how fast you churn clients, all that stuff comes into play once the newness wears off.
Mm-hmm.
And so making sure you have the systems in place, that also goes into the marketing system. Is our marketing system, does it have an advertising strategy that attracts the clients that we want while pushing away the clients that aren't great for us? And so all these things have to be in place before you start making that consideration. And the reality is, for a lot of business owners, posting, just posting, hanging your shingle and making a post on social media saying, hey, I got this business open, that ain't it. And so you have to have an entire system that underpins all of that. And so you scale it up gradually. And so when I say your job is in the way of your business, this means that your job is actually preventing you from scaling your business up to where it can be. And that's a nuanced thing, and it takes a while to get to.
So I got a quick question. I'm sorry to cut you off for a second. Yep. So at $4,000, how long does that continue on for?
I think it's in perpetuity until you pass.
Okay, so you get $2,000 up front. I mean, excuse me, is that $2 million?
$2 million up front.
So $2 million up front, or $4,000 per week.
Yep.
Is that what you're saying? And you get that for life?
I think it's in perpetuity, yeah.
Okay, of the rest of your life.
Yep.
Do you get to pass that on to your children, or does it die with you?
These are rules that we determine as we have the
okay.
The discussion.
So again, I'm just trying to understand what the rules, what the game rules are, because it's going to be based on that. Because if we're just talking about, so yeah, if we're talking about $4,000 for the rest of your life, technically I would do the $4,000, but so it's $2 million, or the $4,000, or what was the other? To 850 credit score.
850 credit score.
Listen to me, ladies and gentlemen. Your credit don't mean shit if you got money. Like nobody cares. I'm not even gonna lie to you. The only reason why you have credit, for the most part, is to show credibility. That's it, right? But if you already got money or whatever, like my car, most of the cars that I buy, I don't put anything down on them, right? Because my credit or credibility speaks for itself. I don't have to put nothing down. Right now, for somebody who has a low credit score, you have to put money down because they don't mess with you. You see what I'm saying? So again, it's not necessarily that I'm trying to be a dick or anything, but like, no, I remember at one point my credit score was like in a low 500s, and then it took me about 5-6 years to go from a low 500 credit score to 800 credit score. You know what I'm saying? Like it took me about 7-8 years to build it from there to shoot our way up, right?
Right.
So like, yeah, I'm just telling you. So I where was I going? I'm sorry. See, that's what Jessica keeps telling me. I'm just like, man, dude. Anyway, so anyway, see, she messes me up every fucking time.
That's all right.
I'm sure you're watching. You ain't shit. I'm telling you, you ain't shit. FYI, just saying. Anyway, okay, so going back to what we were talking about. So I'm looking at this here, and if you get 5%, 5% is good, right? I mean, if you got a CD, you'll probably get something like that, 5-6%, somewhere up around there. That's usually standard average for you to put that in the CD and then collect dividends off of that. But even with that, you don't get that back monthly at all. I mean, you could on other stuff, but not with that. If you put the money in the bank, which is dumb as shit, not gonna lie to you, even if they gave you 5%, which is almost unheard of, I'm not gonna lie to you. Hold on. I guess somebody's trying to ask a question, but
All right, let me see.
yeah.
All right, where they at?
Which one are you on, ma'am? Yeah, somebody's trying to ask a question, but they said that they can't. And that's why it's trial and error, ladies and gentlemen. That's why this is trial and error. Fuck up and fuck up fast. But okay, I'm gonna keep going as you figure out what's going on, bro.
All right.
So even at a CD, if you put all that $2 million in a CD, if it gives you 5%, not CD, in a bank, and it gives you 5% interest on your money, you're gonna be making about $8,333.33 per month. And that's just off of the interest in that alone by itself.
Right.
Now, again, we're also not talking about the taxes. Hold on one sec. Yeah, so she's right there. Thank you, ma'am. But we're also not talking about the taxes in that, because taxes are going to come out of that too. So you can go ahead and take that. Now, again, depending on where you live,
Right.
if you have state taxes versus federal taxes, most states have all federal taxes, but not all states have a state income tax. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but federal tax, it's still going to be 30-some% off top, right? So that 8,000 that you're getting per month, knock off 30-some% of that, and we're at what? 30%. So if 10% is 800, so 1,600, so that'll be another. So you're talking about another almost $2,000 off that. So now you're talking about $6,000.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? That's how much you'll get per month with that. Now, with the other, if you're just doing 4,000, you could put that money in other stuff or whatever, and do a lot more with that than you can the 2 million. So I'll take the 4,000 off top. And the reason why is because, like I said, once you dip in to, and not only that, it's easier to dip in to that 2 million than it is to dip into that 16,000 a month. Go ahead.
All right. So,
Go ahead.
and this comes from, even talking with my wife and whatnot, because that was her world is finance. She was a broker and all this other stuff. And so if I take that $2 million, depending on what age I get it at and stuff like that, I can get an annuity. I can put that $2 million in annuity. And depending on age and a couple other factors, I purchase it. That could pay out $10,000 to $20,000 a month with the $2 million in the annuity. And so if I set it in there, now I'm actually making more than that. I'm making, 4 or 5 times more than that $4,000 a week, just with that money just sitting in that annuity. So there's a lot of different ways you can play it. What I'm thinking is, for me, and Jessica, we're going to get to your question here in a second because I got it right here. For me, it's a matter of the 850 credit score is not when it comes to cash in hand, not when it comes to money.
It means nothing.
And that's the point I was getting to, because
yes,
a lot of the mystical woo-woo and BS about finances and talking about money on social media has a lot of y'all convinced that this 850 credit score is better than having cash.
Not at all.
It's not, because here's the other side. 850 credit score, and this is just my thinking. 850 credit score. Credit score means I can buy it on credit. When I buy something on credit, there's interest attached to that credit. So I'm borrowing, and you can borrow infinitely, but you still got to pay something back. You still pay back what you borrow. And if you don't have a durable business or any way to pay it back, that 850 credit score is not going to be 850 for that long, because you're going to start defaulting on those loans because you have no mechanism to pay it back. So give me the cash. Give me the cash. Either way, $4,000, $2 million. On our end, we throw in an annuity and letting it rock. You know what I'm saying? There are other vehicles that are available to scale up that $4,000 as well. But if you pick an 850 credit score, you've been bamboozled by somebody online.
Yes. Yeah. And then not only that though, but you also have to, and Jessica, we're going to get to your stuff too. It's one of those things where when it comes to like loans, first and foremost, I would tell a person, if, oh my God, how do I even say this without sounding like a pompous dick? I'm just saying it anyway. You don't want a loan. For most of y'all, you want a line of credit.
Yeah.
And the reason is because a loan usually has an APR. It always has an APR attached to it. APR means that that's the interest that you're going to pay on it when you use it, right? And then you still got to pay that back no matter what. A line of credit, on the other hand, let's say that you got to, number one, you don't pay any interest on that if you take it out and use it. That's what these billionaires do. They get all of this money. So like Elon Musk, we'll use him. He'll give them however many stocks of Tesla, right? Mm-hmm. And then what he'll do is, he doesn't get a loan, he gets a line of credit. With the line of credit, you can use it and take it whenever you need to, because technically it's yours. As long as that money gets put back in, it's like taking money out of your own piggy bank. Right. But you got to put it back in, for the most part. Now, if you use it all up, you got to replace it. You can always get more, but you don't have to pay. You don't have to pay taxes on that, and there's no interest on that money at all. It's yours. So for me, I hate loans. Well, let me rephrase that. Loans are cool depending on what you're using them for. Now, for my car, if you get a house, something like that, you can use loans and stuff like that for that. That's cool, right? Because then that's that evolving door, which builds credit, which is still a good thing. I'm not going to tell you credit's it's worthless, because it is not.
Right.
But it's good for the shit that you need it for. Mm-hmm. It's not good for everything. And like my guy Brian just said, if you're talking about it from the aspect of, I just need to build up my credit score, for what reason though? What are you building? You know what I mean? What are you building your credit for? Why? If you're building it for a reason, then I 100% understand. My friend up the street, she built a $500,000 house. They had to finagle her credit to build it up, because I think she was at like a 680 or something like that. But she was making the money, but it wasn't enough to be able to really clear what she was trying to do. And she built her house from the ground up. So for something like that, you have to be able to show the banks that this is what it is. That's what you got to do for that.
Right.
But for everything else, what do you need? What do you need that much money for? Oh, excuse me, not the money. What do you need an 800 credit score for? And I wanted to show y'all right quick before I go off too much into that, because here's the thing, and I want to show you. I don't know if you'd be able to see it. Let's get in. Can you see that?
Kind of see it. It's blurry.
Can you see it a little bit better?
Okay, that's clear. That's a little bit clearer. Yeah.
Okay. So that is where my credit is at this present moment in time. Actually, technically, it's higher than that. Now, if you didn't see that, my credit is at 800, right? Now, I want to show you something else, because again, this credit shit it's for real. So, all right, let's go to Credit Karma, because everybody and a mama mess with Credit Karma, right? So let's go to Credit Karma, and let's see what Credit Karma says that my stuff is, right? So Credit Karma says, hold on, let's see if you can see it. You see what Credit Karma said there? Hold on, I don't know if I'm saying.
I think the light. So I think the light from the camera, the light from your phone is playing havoc with the camera.
So do you see that?
Yep.
That says 772, right? So that basically means, so anytime that you look at, sorry. Hold on, let's bring it up. God damn. So anytime that you see, can you see that? Is it better?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, so anytime you see Credit Karma shows you a Vantage score of a Vantage 3.
Yep.
Right? Vantage 3. So that's how they score everything. Now, when the ones that you have to pay for, like my FICO or whatever, that's something that I have to pay for out of pocket, which again, I'll go back there.
Yep.
Can you see that better?
Still blurry. What's happening is your autofocus on your camera is trying to read it, and it plays havoc with your lights a little bit.
Okay. Here,
So,
hold on. Here, I will, let
so
me go. Hold on, here, hold on. Let's go back. So let's see if that works any better.
yeah, we could make out the numbers.
Okay, so 800. So again, so basically what happens is that, damn, okay. What happens is that for the most part, um, so what happens for the most part is that these credit scores, these credit companies, they're playing with you. All right, that's all they're doing. They 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 make money by finagling your image of what you think success is going to actually be. So then,
Yep.
so then they're telling these people like, hey, talk about this, talk about why you should build up your credit, talk about how credit's going to do this and that. Credit don't mean shit if you got money. It don't mean shit. Like, think about it. What is it that credit can buy that a dollar can't?
Right.
Like, name anything that your credit can buy that a dollar cannot buy.
Well, what it can buy is it can buy it and put interest on it, so you're actually paying more than what your dollar does.
Then what's your dollar? That's right. But if you were to reverse that, what is it that my dollar can pay for that my credit can't? That's going to be almost everything. Everything. So think about it. So one goes into one, but the other one doesn't go back into the other.
Yep.
Go ahead.
So we got to answer
Jessica.
She might be on. If she asked on your Facebook, she might be under your comments because I can't see what your comments are.
Oh, okay. Hold on.
So
how do I do that? Again, y'all, trial and error.
It's on the sidebar. So right under in stream and all that stuff. The first tab is comment. So Jessica.
Okay, right, but how do I see it though? I don't
click on it. And then
it says I'm live, but I don't see. How would I see her comments?
So click on comments and then you should be able to scroll through. But there's been some connectivity issues with StreamYard and Facebook, so that could be it.
Okay.
We've been fighting with them in the StreamYard chat. Anyway, long story short, Jessica, thank you for sticking with us. We're going to get to the question now. So Jessica says, I'm currently at the point where my day job is getting in the way of me scaling my business. Obviously, quitting my job isn't an option. So how do I scale up while juggling my full-time job and family? What's the most important first step to take? So this one is a difficult one because you're trying to maintain the balance, of course, but at the same time, you know that there's a need to scale up. So the first thing I would do is kind of take a look at what levers I can pull that don't add too much more time to my day. And so, can you raise the price? Because that's the easiest level to pull. All you got to do is change numbers. Like literally, all you got to do is change numbers on a screen to raise your price. If you can raise your price, you're going to be able to do more with less coming in. With less clients, you'll be able to get more money with less clients. Two, it's almost, I used to have my staff do what I called unscheduling, where you schedule the times that you're off. And you schedule the times that you're off instead of scheduling the times that you're working. Because when you do that, you can put your working into a box and you may be able to find new places to squeeze in getting work done on the business or whatever your venture is. If you schedule your time off, because you know your time off is protected. And the other side is you got to honor it. So if you schedule off on a certain day, that means there's no work. But if you schedule but if you're not scheduled off that day, you know that you're working on this thing. But the first lever is price. You pull that one, that's a little bit easier. And I'm using my experience with gyms. So with running a gym, the things I can address is price, my capacity to do business. So can I squeeze more clients in? And then I can control the time too. So can I have more sessions in the course of a day? This might be raising price just a little bit to see how much more cash flow comes in so that you can still do the amount of work within the same amount of time. You can get more done. It also gives you more to invest in your business so that you have the ability to, if you need to, you can hire somebody, you can outsource some stuff so you can save more of your time. So that's what I would look at. The first thing I would probably look at is my price. And the reason why I'm saying that is my boy Les, I don't know if he might be working, but he mentioned this offhand. He's like, man, I'm really, really busy. And he has his own design agency. It's like, I'm super busy. I need to raise my price.
Yep.
And the reason why is he's like, I need to raise my price so I can make more without having to spend more time.
Mhm.
So that's what my thinking is. Take a look at your pricing strategy first and make sure that you're raising it to be exact. And there's the other side. We're actually in this inflationary phase where, you know, they say if you have an older business, if you're not raising the price every year, then you're going to be falling behind. With See's Candy, Warren Buffett raises his price every year. He's done it every year. See's Candy goes up to match the rate of inflation. Hasn't slowed his business down yet. And so it might be a matter of taking a look at what you're asking for per a unit of service or per unit of product and asking more so that you can get more, and then you can scale within that because a lot of times the biggest barrier is a cash flow issue. So
Yeah, no, I would say the same thing.
So hopefully that answered the question. I can get into it a little bit more.
Jessica, does that answer your question? Or do we need to kind of elaborate a little bit more? I don't know. Hey, can she not ask it on here? Like, what's going on?
So you might need to open up your Facebook on your computer and see and go to our live stream. Make sure you mute it so we're not getting double. But look in the comments there.
Okay.
Because I have to do it on mine too. I have my phone so I can look.
Okay, hold on. We recommend closing Facebook. Okay, so it says we recommend closing Facebook while you're live. This saves bandwidth and it's easier on your computer. If you need Facebook open, mute it so you don't hear yourself. Okay, Facebook has about 10 seconds delay to the stream. Okay, I'll keep that. Okay.
And then go to the comments of the live stream. You may be able to see.
Oh, shit, I could see everything. Okay.
So do we have more comments?
No, just Miss Jessica. Hey, it all starts with one, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm talking about. All right, it all starts with one. Hold on. So what are you? All right, so I will put that over there. Hold on. Let's see where we are. Okay. So I can see everything from our thing. Hey, Jessica, tell me yes one more time, just so I can see that you're. Because I don't know if you were saying yes that you just got a client off your thing or whatever. Oh, another thing too, I want to tell people that my friend Jessica, she makes, and so she doesn't make it, she rebuilds and refurnishes furniture and stuff like that. She's actually pretty cool. I will get you guys some the next time we're on, we'll get you some pizzas, and we'll put it on our stuff too, so people can actually see that.
Right.
And go ahead.
It's custom work. So you can have a piece of furniture that is really unique to what you want. It's custom. You're not going to find anything else like it. And so, Jessica, give us your contact information or how you want people to reach out to you, and we'll put it on the comments on the screen.
Yeah, for sure. Hell yeah.
Just send that to us so that we could drive business your way. And for other business owners, I know.
Yeah, send us some shit. Let's go. My
boy David Slaughter over at Slaughterhouse Athletics. He works with kids doing strength training and whatnot. Reach out to him, hit him up. We can always shout out other businesses. As you guys know, Fearless has business he's tied into. I'm involved with Coach Mo Athletics. And so this is a place where we want to be able to not only talk about business and talk about the process of being self-sufficient, but also
trial and error. Trial and error.
Help business owners level up and help you guys start your journey, or if you run into a problem, help you correct and talk about what we've screwed up and what we learned from our screw up, so we can really lean into the trial and error concept.
Okay.
So, and we kind of talked about this, like we're actually going through a lot of the outline without going through the outline.
Yeah, for sure.
So
I
we're
think that
talking.
once you have a conversation like that and you've been through it, it's easier to kind of, you know what I'm saying, like go down that succession of stuff because you've already been there, done that. And our job is to kind of help other people to kind of navigate that too. And with that said, we don't know everything.
Right.
That's why it's called trial and error. We don't know everything. Go ahead, sir.
And I think one of the things is, and this is just something I put out there, a lot of times, and the next part is we're gonna talk about the fear factor and overcoming risk and stuff like that. But a lot of times, human beings have a bias to listen to somebody who's confident in their delivery, even if they're totally wrong. We have a bias. If they sound confident in what they're saying, we inherently believe them, as opposed to somebody who's like, "Ooh, let me go check my notes. I need to pull this book out to make sure I'm factually accurate."
That part, yeah.
And so a lot of times we have a bias towards people sounding right as opposed to being right. My thing is, if somebody tells you, if you ask them a question and they say, "I don't know," that's a person that you may be able to trust a little bit better because they're admitting, "I don't know. I need to go find out more about this," as opposed to somebody who just freestyles BS and just throws out answers all the time. So if they don't know, they'll tell you, "I don't know, but I can find out." That's more important than somebody who just has answer all the time. It's a fake level of confidence, and they may not even know. That's the 850 credit score guy. Confidently wrong. So we're talking about managing risk at this point and shifting your mindset, because a business owner, once you get into the trenches and get into the weeds of owning a business, you start perceiving risk a little bit differently. And there is a shift that actually occurs from transitioning from being that 9 to 5 or steady job worker to being a business owner. The first thing that people struggle with is price. And that's one of the things we just talked about, because we're used to pricing ourselves based on what our jobs pay us. And to be quite honest with you, if your job had to outsource that role and hire somebody else who had the same breadth and depth of knowledge and experience that you have, they probably be paying a lot more for a consultant as opposed to a full-time worker. The only thing they don't have to worry about is the taxes as much, because they can 1099 them. So a lot of times you perceive risk a little bit differently once you start your own business. And so you gotta, you're going to be faced with a lot of what ifs. And a lot of times the things that we see are risks. The things we see as risks are just opportunities, except we're too early in the phase to recognize them as opportunities. But one thing I see specifically with side hustle, and this is unique to side hustle. The people that love side hustles, right? Like it's fun, it's exciting. I got 5 different side hustles, right? One of the challenges is when you take that one side hustle and lock it in and say, "This is what I'm going to do full time." Once it starts getting boring and once the newness wears off and you have to start doing the repetitive, boring stuff that makes that side hustle into a long-lasting business, the temptation from those other side hustles are going to start popping up.
Yeah.
And they're going to be like, "Hey, I'm new over here. Why don't you give me a shot?" And that opportunity looks good. It looks amazing. And you start playing around with other side hustles as opposed to doing the unpleasant work of growing the business that you decided that you're going to expand full time into. That is going to be the first risk. You have to say, "This is the side hustle that I'm turning into a business, and I'm committing to this one."
Right. So at the end of the day, it's mastering what we call mastering the mundane.
Yep.
And mundane means mastering the boring. Yeah, I mean, and again, I've said this, I will say this consistently. T. Harv Eker said business should be boring. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not going to be the if and the be all and the bees knees. I'm telling you, it's going to be boring as shit. When I'm looking, and again, I'm using Jessica as an example. Dude, she does foster care. She does community inclusion. This woman has all these other things going to make money, which, I mean, I ain't gonna lie, this is mad inspiring to me. Hence, that's what we're doing now, because she's been telling me, like, Fearless, you really need to be on talking about this stuff, whether by yourself, something else. Get on there and do it yourself, whatever. But she'll be up at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. She got shit to do the next day. She out there sanding, watching videos on how to sand. She hit me up one day. She was like, "I've been sitting there sanding all this time, and I've been doing it wrong." You know what I'm saying? To be that humble to say, you know what, man, I messed up on this.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I told her, I'm like, and now when she looks at other people's work, she can be like, yeah, like I could see the strokes in this person's stuff, or I could see the imperfections in this person's stuff because now I know what I'm doing. But like I told her, you can see it because you do it. But if you don't do it, you're not really gonna see that, and you're not gonna care. And like I told her, who gives a shit as long as she's selling it?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? As long as if she's selling it for $375, if she's selling it for $475, if she's selling it for $500, that shit for you, that should be like it's all inspiring to you that somebody is selling something in your eyes that's inferior to your product.
Right.
So that should make you feel like shit. If she could sell this whack shit, I could sell my stuff. You know what I'm saying? For a little bit more. But you know, right now Jessica's gotta like, I'm gonna keep my prices kind of low for affordable people. And the one thing that we keep telling her, and I know you've told her too, stop counting other people's pockets. Just because your pockets look a certain way don't mean everybody else's pockets gonna be that way too. And here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, I hope if you don't take anything else away from this, I hope you take this. And again, I've said this before too. People will buy the dumbest shit, and they will buy it for whatever price you choose to charge them. Now, again, at that point, your objective is to market and advertise your product to the people who want it. Mm-hmm. That's it. If you're not into business, if you're not into living your life, if you're not into reading good books, then this is probably not your podcast. You might be into to ancient aliens and shit like this. We might touch on something like that, but you're not here for that, right? So figuring out where your tribe is, where your people is, or the people that want to buy your stuff, that's who you sell your shit to. So people who like furniture, people who like who love going to what are those places? Jessica, I'm looking at your stuff. What are those places called where people go? It's kind of like a farmer's market, but for furniture. What is that? What is that called? Because
thrift stores, junk markets.
Yeah, we don't want to say junk. We don't want to use a J word.
Yeah, thrift stores.
We don't want to use a J word. Or whatever. What is that? What is that called? Again, this thing is on a 9-second delay, or what is it? This a 10-second delay. What is that called? Is she even still here? I don't know. Okay. Oh, Leanne. No, Lynn Ann. Thank you, dear. Flea market. Or it's just a market. Yeah. Lynn Ann, thank you, dear. Thank you much. Flea market. Well, I guess flea market works too.
Flea market, swap.
Flea market, swap. I mean, swap me is more for like, you know what I'm saying, California type shit. But they do actually have one in Vegas. Yep. Been there. Not gonna lie to you, it's actually kind of cool. I enjoyed it. So, but yes, thank you guys. But yeah, so she sells. But again, she's up at 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, sanding stuff. And to know that, man, I've been messing up. Who gives a shit? Sell it. People will buy the dumbest shit. And I'm not saying her product is dumb or nothing, but I'm just saying if you show it to them, a person's gonna buy it. Like, that's all I'm saying. Ahead,
so there's a couple of things. So one, and it goes into the scaling. So I'm gonna talk about the process of onboarding and outsourcing stuff here. But there's one thing that stuck in my mind when we talk about the mistakes. So I watched this. It was a YouTube thing. I think it was called Make Art Not Content, or it might be Make Art Now. Anyway, they talked about Prince's work ethic. And basically they said his work ethic, the way that his producers described it was, it came out like a sneeze. Like his creativity came out like a sneeze, and he kept the mistakes in because the mistakes were the feeling. So a lot of his songs may have had mistakes in them, but they were in the final mix of the recording. because he wanted to capture the feeling of what he was creating. When you're in a creative space, sometimes perfectionism works when you're trying to get specific numbers and facts and figures right. But when you're actually creating something, sometimes the mistakes are the things that bring people in. I know YouTubers specifically, they'll make a mistake on purpose in their title cards, or they'll misspell a word or something just so that people point it out, because people point it out, they get engagement in the comments. They say, hey, you screwed this up. And now they actually have the engagement to boost their engagement numbers. So
okay,
you keep the mistakes in. And that's one of the things you learn as a creator. You know, sometimes it's not about the perfection, it's about the mood that you're selling. And so that's one thing for creative entrepreneurs. But pivoting it back to what we were talking about, the scaling up piece is important. When it's sometimes you might need to outsource some of the stuff. You might need to hire somebody to do the lower level tasks that you don't necessarily need to be involved with. But as you scale up, you might have to hire somebody that's smarter than you. And a lot of business owners are hesitant to do that, because why would they want to work for me if they're smarter than me? Why don't they go off and start their own business? Well, a lot of people don't want to start their own business. They want to work for somebody else. You have to be able to hire people that are strong in the areas where you're weak. And that will allow you to scale a lot faster if you hire people that are strong in the areas where you're not as good, or even they're equal to you in areas that you're strong in. That allows you the ability to focus on working on your business as opposed to working in your business.
Right.
Working in your business. And if you want to know where this comes from, the book is called The E-Myth. The E-Myth. The idea of working in your business is where you are the engineer. You're the one who has to turn out all the product. And without you, the business doesn't move forward. So when you're doing tasks related to that, you're working in your business. Working on your business is creating the employee manuals, making sure that your systems are in place, hiring the right people, writing out your templates for how you want things done, how you want people, like when we're doing brick and mortar, how you want your staff to dress, how you want them to greet people when they come in the store. All that stuff falls in working on your business, because then you establish a certain consistency within that piece of it. And so the in your business is necessary. It's absolutely necessary to get it off the ground. But when we're talking about now, we're at the point where we're scaling up. How do I outsource? What's the first thing I can hire out for? When I Sell Words was more into like the videography side of things. If I was going to go on a shoot, I would have my camera. I would look at see how much it would cost to hire somebody to run second camera. I would hire a sound guy. I would hire an editor and all this other stuff, and get all these other ducks in a row so that it could streamline my process. All I have to do is show up with my camera and shoot. But then we build that into the price that we're charging. So all that stuff is in what I'm charging. So all I got to do is be the ringmaster for all that stuff and make sure I'm managing all those other pieces. But my asking price covers all the other stuff. So I can make sure that I'm paying their day rates, or paying the fees that it costs for the editor and all the other stuff that's built into the price. And the client doesn't have to know all that stuff. So that allows me to go and scale. And so a lot of times when you find people that are fully into the video production side of things, if it's not just a solo person with the camera, they have to put together a team. I got to get sound guy. I got to get, if I have to hire actors, I have to hire talent, all this other stuff. They put all that together and put it into their price and pass it on to the customer. So they're not just doing it at cost.
Right.
They're looking at a higher level of it. So I'm saying all that to say this. The idea is finding time to work on your business, because that's going to free you up so that you have to work in your business less, where the business can start running a little bit independent of you.
Okay.
So, but that's also higher automating, ChatGPT is amazing. There's all kinds of AI tools when you're in the content creation space that can help you out with this stuff, but you just got to know and you got to actually comfortably deploy them. So,
Right. Okay, I am going to put us in this thing right quick. Give me a second, kind sir.
all right.
See, again, I'm trying to figure my thing out too. Okay. All right, so can you see? So this book right here, it's another banger. This is Who Not How. This is kind of what Brian was just talking about, is in finding other people that can do things that you can't do. And that's one of the biggest problems, I think, that sometimes is that what scares so many of us, and I say us because I'm included in there as well, is that what happens is that because we can't do something or we're not good at it, we just don't do anything at all. Or you just consistently keep working at it until you get it. But again, I was just reading about something. Actually, I was just commenting from somebody asking me, what is the difference between being productive and being busy? You know what I'm saying? And being productive it's what we're doing right now. We're creating content. Being busy is pushing that content out. You say, if that makes any sense. So one thing is actually producing something, which is this. The other thing is not. So you can sit and talk about, and Lynn, you're right on that. And actually, I know you. Hello, I haven't seen you in a while. Thanks for watching, but you're right. She said, sell. She said, yeah, sell it and they'll buy it. And you're right. As long as you put it out there to the right people, somebody's gonna buy it, right? I mean, it may not go viral or anything, but I can guarantee you somebody's gonna buy what you got, right. Especially if it resonates with them. But in terms of business, when Brian and I first started working together, I had Brian, and Jessica will actually be able to attest to this too. We hired Brian to come in and help us to help me specifically with camera type stuff, with microphone setup, with podcast setup. I mean, I hired him for everything. And in the interim of all that, I'm one of those guys that if you tell me that you should get this, you should get that, you should get that, you should get this, I'm already on top of it. So as soon as it came out of his mouth, I'm like, send that to me. And I bought it right then and there. And then I would spend however much of my time to go learn that. And once I learned it, okay, cool, we need to move on to the next thing. And Brian, please correct me if I'm wrong. We went through that. So it wasn't even a long period. Mm-hmm. I soaked up everything that I needed to the point where I'm like, hey, man, I think we're kind of good. He's like, yeah, I think we kind of are too. There's not really, he's like, for the most part, there's not really much more I can show you as opposed to you just doing it yourself, what you're doing it. So, and then later on, we were like, hey, why don't we just do this stuff together? And again, I mean, even me going to this book and showing you the book, I learned how to do that because Brian, kind of walked me through it or whatever. And then not only that, though, but when I wasn't around him, I would sit around in my own house, and Jessica will attest because she's my next door neighbor and also my best friend. So she would know that, like, I would sit at home by myself for hours. Instead of reading, I would be doing this right here. I would be studying how to do this. I would study how to make a YouTube banner, how to make intros and outros for my videos. I learned how to do all of that by watching other people do it, and then I got some coaching from Brian here, and even from Jessica, because I'll usually send it to her. Hey, what do you think? And she'll usually shit all over my stuff if she don't like it. Brian, am I lying?
She keeps it real.
She has no problem shitting all over my stuff. Like, I don't like it. This is that, the other. Yeah, you need to have more of this. Why you keep cutting him off? What's wrong with you? Like, we just had this conversation this morning. She don't sound like that, but I'm just talking shit. But still, though, that's just kind of one of those things. And then I'm sitting there looking at Lynn, and Lynn, man, I wish you can actually be on here. Lynn was actually a huge pivotal point in my life as well. When I had a business that that did extremely well. And I had to Lynn, were you there? Were you there that morning when I had to fire all of our staff because our company was shutting down? Were you there for that? Hold on one sec. It takes a little bit for this thing to load up. What do we got to figure out how to get our stuff on here? This is crazy.
Well, I just looked at it, and one of the things is she
said yes. She was there that morning. Like when I tell people, not to cut you off, but when I tell people like all the shit that I had to go through as a business owner, as the bickering in my company, all the bullshit that transpired. Lynn, you were there through all of it, yes. I think that you were probably one of a few of our first employees. Am I right about that? Hold on one second. She's right. But yeah, like Lynn has been there from not mistaken. I think she was like one of the first people that we had brought on or whatever. Hold on, let's see if she'll respond in a little bit. But like everything, like when I'm talking about business, and when I'm talking about failure, when I'm talking about everything going to shit, when I'm talking about making a crap ton of money, when I'm talking about losing everything, when I talk about, hold on, yes, it was rough. Yes, she was one of the first. When I talk about having to live and sleep on my friend's couch for years or whatever after my company ended, all that stuff, like Lynn is one of those people that can attest to everything that I'm talking about. And when I was talking to Jessica about this not too long ago, I'm like, a lot of these so-called YouTubers, a lot of these social media influencers talk this big talk about how do you succeed? How do you do this? How do you do that? But don't nobody talk about what happens when you get your ass kicked. Nobody talks about what happens when you have your business and you're making $250,000 a year and you go down to having to work at a fucking temp service. Don't nobody talk about that shit. Don't nobody talk about when you're sleeping on your friend's couch in the basement that you're sharing with her 11-year-old son while you got your baby with you. Like, don't nobody talk about that shit. That's real. That's why, like, I'm so visceral. I'm so passionate when I talk about this stuff because I went through this shit, all of it, and then had to, you know what I'm saying? I had to bounce myself back up or whatever. And I had a little bit of help, but a lot of this shit came from me digging deep, figuring some shit out and doing something about it. That whole trial and error period, writing down what I wanted to do, how much did I want to make. And that's all I started off. I wanted to make $10,000 a month. I had no idea how I would do it. And then I did it. But it didn't go from like 2,000 or 3,000 to 10. It went from like 3,000 to like 5,000. And then it went to 7,000. And then it went to 14. I never even hit 10. It went to 14,000. Then it went to 18,000. Then it went to 21. I'm like, God damn. And again, everything that I'm talking about, there's somebody who can vouch for that. You know what I'm saying? So when we talk about, again, going back to who, not how, sometimes you got to figure that shit out. And there's certain things that I know I wasn't good at. So you figure out what you're good at. Me and Jessica were talking about this last night. Tell me if I'm wrong, Jess. We were talking about this last night. And I told her, I said, I can help anybody make $10,000 a month. Anybody. Listen to what I'm telling you. There's no guarantees and shit, but I can help a person do that. And I told her, I said, the reason how I know it, because I've done it, right? And the thing is, it's very simple, and I'll just give it to you. You ain't even got, you have to buy a course. I'll tell you what it is. Every single job, let me get off of this right quick. Every single job, I don't care what it is, every job, there's somebody in that agency, in that organization that is making $120,000 a year. Whether it is the employee, which would be you or whomever, whether it's a supervisor, general manager, CEO, CFO, somebody's making that amount of money, period. All you have to do, very simple, is figure out who it is and then go tell that person that you would like to make that amount of money and ask them how to do it. And for the most part, I would say 80% of the time, they'll tell you exactly what to do. 80% of the time. Now, you're going to have that 20% that either tells you to fuck off or the company closes down or something happens. So you always got to, there's always that variable of that 20% of unmentionables or that variable that you didn't foresee coming, right? I mean, I thought my company would actually be around for quite a while, and it wasn't. We were around for a couple years, but in that couple years, we did some amazing work. Did we, Lynn? Did we do some amazing work? And that's how I felt. I found my leadership or my managing style when we ran that. I had to let shit go that was so illegal happening in our company. And there was some stuff that was like, man, you just got to let that go and figure out how to rise above it. Lynn, am I lying? Am I lying? So there was, I think, Lynn, tell me, Lynn, did I fire you one day? And then 15 minutes later, I took it back. I think it was like 15, 20 minutes later, I had to take it back. Because no. Remember, because I think it was you. It was, I'm telling you, I think that happened. Because we were in the, yes, see, you know what I'm talking about. And we were in the conference room. I had to let y'all go. It was like 3 of y'all. And then I think it was like 20, 30 minutes later, I'm like, you know what? No, I called you back that night. I was like, never mind. And then we just swept this shit up under the rug, telling y'all don't do it again. Is that what happened? Like something along that line? Like, I'm telling you, the company shit was crazy, bro. It was crazy. Like, but again, that's why I love this so much. Because again, my friend Lynn can attest to the trial and error of the shit that I had to go through early on. Like, we were talking about what? My son's almost 13, so what, 15 years ago into, you know, where I am today, what I've actually been doing up until now. So I know that is a long way. Sorry, Jess. You ain't shit. I'm just saying it again. You ain't shit. Sorry. Brian, go ahead before I get in more trouble.
So
Yeah.
you mentioned 80-20, and that's kind of a golden rule in business, and it crosses a lot of different thresholds. So when we talk about the 80-20 rule, it's basically this basic concept, but it extends to a lot of other things. You know, 80% of your outcomes are created by 20% of your inputs. So 20% of your customers provide 80% of your outcome.
Right.
And so the idea is tapping and leaning more into that 20% and expanding it. So let's say 20% of what you do on a day-to-day basis, and we talked about the difference between being productive and being busy. I would posit that 20% of what you do is actually being productive, 80% is being busy.
Yes.
And so
yes.
And so
yes.
I agree.
I
would lean into that 20% and maximize your time in that 20%, because some of the stuff you just still got to do. Like, it's not going to go anywhere. It's still got to get done, but it's not necessarily moving you forward. So either you got to do it or you got to outsource it. But
that part.
Lean into the 20%, and that will help you grow faster than anything else. So my 80-20 came with CMA, Coach Mo Athletics. We had gone and filmed a bunch of content, like how to dribble, how to shoot, all this other stuff. And initially we were going to sell it online, right? And I decided, why don't we just give this away for free, right? And by giving it away for free and then re-editing the clips and then clipping those clips into smaller sound bites that were like, you know, anywhere between 1 and 3 minutes, we started getting more calls for services. By doing that, by leaning in on it, it was time consuming. It did take a little bit of time to set up, but now it's a matter of me going in, finding the clip I want to post and posting it. And that generates business in and of itself. That is one of those small things. Also, newsletters. Taking the time to write out a newsletter, that makes money, but it's a time consuming thing. But I don't do it all the time. That's in that 20%. So finding those things that you can do 20% of and get 80% return on it, that's what you do. You find the things that make you money, because the things that make you money is what 20% of what your normal tasks are, and you lean into them as much as you can. And maybe you can up that 20% to 30% or 40%. So that's the 80-20 rule. And that's kind of what that's a good way to level up your business. And also, if you already have a business, it's a good way to get more business by laser focusing in on that 20% and mastering it.
Right. Well, I mean, that's I think that's kind of the part that comes with it is the mastering part within itself. Another thing too that I wanted to kind of talk about was that with my son, I mean, we all know how much I love reading, right? And one of the things that really helped me with helping my son to read, he still doesn't like to read at this present moment in time, and I'm not going to force that because, whatever. But one of the things that I started to understand with him to get him not only to focus, but to catch my mistakes was that I'll read something and I'll say something, I'll mispronounce a word, or I just won't say it out at all, just to see if he's following along with me. Because what we'll do is he'll buy a book, I'll buy a book, and I'll buy the same one, and we'll read along together. And so he'll read. And again, it's just about reading out loud, not to yourself, out loud, to get him used to reading out loud and in front of people. Mm-hmm. Because I don't know about you, but the way I grew up in a foster home, and I grew up in multiple foster homes, but there was one in particular that I would have to get newspapers, magazines, books, and like this lady would make me stand in front of the family and read books. And boy, I sucked. Kind of wasn't that good at it, right? And I would have to do this in front of the family every single night. And I hated reading. Like, I hated reading or whatever. And eventually I got, pretty good at it. But that was just kind of one of those things where I'm not scared to talk in front of people. I'm not scared to read anything in front of people. If I have to give a speech, I noticed within myself, it's hard for me to write a speech out. Like, I can't write a speech out. Mm-hmm. I can write bullet points, but I can't just sit down and write my speech out. It doesn't work that way for me. And being in Toastmasters for years, it wasn't until like later on in the process that I discovered that, boy, I suck at sitting there writing stuff because I'm such a perfectionist. Now, if I write out topics that I want to talk about, I can do that all day long and go from there. But if I had to, like, again, you'll tell me the topic, I don't write anything down. I just like, okay, I think it's stuff in my life, and then we just go. Mm-hmm. Nothing's written. I may have certain notes that I may want to talk about, but I didn't know that I was going to sit and talk about, one of my past companies with one of my, past employees. That's just natural stuff that just pops up. But if I'd had any of that written down, we wouldn't have ever gotten to that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So one of the things, like I said, what I do with my son is I'll intentionally mistake a word, or I won't say it, just to see if he's paying attention and he'll catch me. Like, nope, go back, say that again, and then I'll re-say it. Nope, and I'll go back a couple of sentences down, do it again. See if he's paying attention. Nope, go back. What's that word? And that's what he's saying to me.
Yep.
And I started noticing that when I was teaching him when I was teaching him his alphabet. I was like, dude, if I teach you, it's one thing, but if you teach me, you'll know it. So that's what I started doing. And then he improved drastically. So I hear what you're saying on that with making a mistake on purpose. Mm-hmm. Just to see if somebody catches it and says something to you. Grant Cardone's book, he was talking about that too. He said, there's all kind of mistakes all through that book. He said, I don't give a shit. Did you buy it? Right. Did you learn anything from what I said to you? We could talk about my mistakes all day long, but I produced the book. I wrote the book, I produced it, I put it out, and I sold it. What are you out here doing? You read it, now you're going to do anything with it, right?
Right.
I mean, and that's kind of, yeah, I mean, so that's kind of where I'm at with, hold on. Sorry about that. But that's kind of that's where I'm at with that. That was just a point that you made that I just kind of thought about. I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense because I do that with my son. When I do it on purpose. And then one time, a couple times, he called me where I didn't do it on purpose. And he actually caught me. And I was like, bro, I'm not going to lie to you. That's kind of embarrassing. You know what I'm saying? I think he was 11 or 12 at that time. So, well, he's still 12, but I mean, that was kind of embarrassing, not going to lie to you. But I'm okay being called out by my kid. That doesn't bother me. You know, so I'm okay with that.
Well, and I think, it's being comfortable with that call out. My daughter calls me out all the time because she's smarter than I am. And so,
right.
And so I'm used to it. And my son will call me out on stuff. And so you kind of get used to it. You learn how to humble yourself, especially as an entrepreneur. There are people that really get locked into how amazing and how knowledgeable they are, but they never take time to think about what they don't know. And that's a trap you can fall into when you stop learning as a business owner. That's where your business stalls.
Yeah, it's called a saturation point.
Right. And, it's being cognizant of that. Like, I'm reaching my saturation point. Sometimes I got to find a way to wring my brain out so I can absorb more. One of the things is, and we touched on a little bit, we had some questions regarding it. How do we make this transition? What does it look like? And part of it is coming up with a plan. Like, if you are really serious about it, because there's two things I need to throw out to preface all this. One, being an entrepreneur can be a lonely existence, just because a lot of the people that are still doing the full-time working stuff, some of the conversations you have, they haven't even thought about. And so you're talking about what life is like on Jupiter, and they've never left Earth. And so a lot of times it can be I'm not going to say lonely, but it can be isolating, because a lot of times people that are still working will not be able to identify with what you say as a business owner, because it's a different perspective.
No.
And stilling yourself with that and understanding that there is a separation that comes. So with the planning piece of it, and we could talk, I'm not going to go all the way into it, but stacking your cash, making sure that your money's coming in, and you have your savings set up and your emergency fund set up and all the other stuff, on top of having a business that's generating money and is paying you on a monthly basis, is paying you and is paying itself. Okay. But stacking that cash is important, right? Making sure you're getting the right contacts, getting into the networking places, getting into the networking groups so that you can be around other business owners. That's important. You may not even have to say anything, but being in these networking groups where you're around to hear how business owners talk, how they perceive the world, it will do a lot for you. And so if you're working full time, take your lunch break, take an extended lunch break, find a networking group, go sit down and listen, and even share what you're doing. You can soak up so much game from that, and it can change. It could tilt your perspective a little bit. And that's what Fearless helps you do, is a forceful reframe of your perspective. But this is something else that will provide a forceful reframe of your perspective, being around business owners and listening to them. But
your environment's everything.
Right. So stacking the cash, getting all the contacts, getting your contract set up, figuring out what this looks like, and figuring out, okay, so I'm going to go full time on that. What does that actually mean? Because for a lot of times you think, well, full time with my business now, full time means 8-hour days. Nope. Sometimes with your business, a full time commitment might be you're trading your 8-hour days at your regular job for 16-hour days working for yourself. And you got to square yourself with that.
Right.
You got to be able to be comfortable doing that. So there's the mental side of it, but then the physical side of it is money, making sure all the other cash flow stuff is set up and writing it down and making sure that this is what you're getting yourself into, because the pivot away from a 9 to 5 can be jarring, especially if this is not a world that you've ever explored before. And so you have to mentally get yourself ready for that stuff and physically get yourself ready for that. That is the transition plan. So starting to figure out what your life, envisioning what your life looks like. And then once you get into it, then you start figuring out, okay, so now that I'm doing this, I'm doing the 16-hour days, what do I want my life to look like? That's the creative tension that we talked about from Peter Senge in the 5th Discipline. The creative tension is what your life is versus what you want it to look like. And the gap in between is creative tension. So,
so something I'm kind of looking at now or whatever, it's kind of like it's kind of like the point of like the queen bee, right? You know what I'm saying? Like the hive within itself is, it lives for the queen, right? It dies for the queen. It does everything for the queen. And I liken that to working for other people years ago. Thank you. I liken that to working for other people because we are huge when it comes to doing all this stuff for other people, but we don't do the same thing for ourselves.
Yep.
And getting away from that hive mind type of mentality, that shit sucks. And that's really hard to maneuver that. And I think that that's where a lot of us are, is that we're so passionate about working and doing our jobs for other people. But when it comes to keeping that same energy for yourself, we don't do it. Or we find it hard to do that. So shifting that hive mind to from outside of you to inside of you, that's like the hardest thing that I've seen that people have had to do. So there was another question from my buddy Tommy from the Rice Bowl. He asked me like a while ago. So he said, how do you juggle multiple businesses while staying effective as a leader? I'll let you take that one and then I'll go after.
So because I'm actually living that life right now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You go first. Yeah.
So for me, it's really allocating my time. Like I had to sit down and go at my calendar and say, okay, on this day I'm doing this, on this day I'm doing this. This is my day to work on my tasks related to this specific business. That is not easy, and optimally, I wouldn't be doing that. But I got multiple people depending on me for different aspects of this business thing. So really sitting down and allocating my time on the front end and saying, okay, so Wednesdays is when I work on video and marketing work for CMA. Okay. On Tuesdays is my I Sell Words day. On Fridays, this is when I'm doing this and I'm doing client work for X, Y, and Z, and really dedicating those blocks of times to each day and not deviating from that, because that's the discipline piece. A lot of times, and Fearless, you can attest to this because you've been in that boss's seat before. One of the things that we encounter as business owners, especially when you have staff that work with you, you have to be comfortable telling your staff, okay, so this felt like an emergency to you, but this is not a priority for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have the capability of fixing this on your own. So if I was there, what would you do? So like say, leak spraying in the gym, right? If I had somebody calling me and saying, hey, what would you do? We have a leak spray, from the gym. So what am I supposed to do about it?
Mm-hmm.
Call a plumber, put a bucket under it. You know what I'm saying? That's what I would do if I was in your situation. Mm-hmm. This is not necessarily a priority. I'll see you when I get there.
Right.
And so, especially when you have that kind of stuff, it is, I'm going into the weeds here, but I'm when I was,
go ahead, man, go.
When I was managing my shelter,
it ain't just me doing it. It's not just me. Brian does it too, ma'am.
When I was managing my shelter, one of the things I was big on was, I had my shelter and I was the director and I had 2 managers underneath me. Okay. One of the things for me was, I want to teach my managers how to do most of my job. I'm teaching them how to do most of my job so that when I need them to step into the role of me, they can effectively do it. And so when you have staff, you have multiple businesses, you got multiple priorities, really identifying your staff that have the bandwidth and capacity and the mental fortitude to learn more and take on more of what your responsibilities are on a day-to-day basis so that it can operate this without you. And it allows you to focus on the higher end of stuff, which is finding new business opportunities. Hey, I need to open up a second location, or we need to buy somebody out. These are the things that are the high level kind of things that you need to be in on. But the day-to-day operations, finding that staff and identifying that staff that can learn 2 levels up. I was big about teaching my frontline staff 2 levels above their job. So I wanted my frontline staff to have the competence of my managers, and my managers to have my level of competence in most things. And I was not scared to admit that piece of it. And I wasn't scared that they were going to replace me or find somebody better, because there were certain things that I could do and certain outcomes I could create that they may not have the skill or experience to create. And that's fine. But finding that person that can absorb more and giving them the opportunity to take over more, and not just letting them be comfortable sitting and doing where they're at currently. So for multiple businesses, I would find my 1 or 2 people that can take on more and incentivize them and put it on their plate. The other side is they have to be motivated by that, because some people, they just want the paycheck. Other people, the paycheck is nice, but they want to learn more. They're trying to grow through the organization, grow through the business. Identify those people that want to grow through the business and use that as a teaching thing to incentivize them. Hey, these are the things I do. The last piece, when your staff screws up, and they will, when you delegate on this level, when they screw up, when you sit down and talk to them and debrief on them, don't beat them over the head with the screw up. Find out what their thought process was. Figure out what their thought processes was. Because if you can identify what their thought process was, I used to tell my staff all the time, as long as you could tell me I may not agree with the actions you took, but as long as you could tell me what your thought process was, what you were thinking, and the thought process makes sense to me, I'm going to back you up on it. And that's what delegating on that level means. So the way they do it may look different than what I do it, but if it makes sense to them and they've actually put thought into what they're doing, I support them on it, as long as it's not detrimental to what we're trying to do as a business.
I agree. I think that if I were to answer that question, I would probably answer it the same way. Tommy, I personally, I guess there's 1, 2, 3. So here's the thing: there's 2 businesses for the most part that I actually run. The one that we're doing right now, like coaching, and this is like more of like it's more of like a passion. It's like a passion more than a hobby or whatever. But like doing what we're doing right now, again, this is the same thing. We're building something off of this platform, off of the education that we bring to people, right, or the value that we bring. So, I can't say that with what I do, I can actually have somebody come in and I can delegate that to another person. I couldn't do that. So with what I do, it affords me the time and the space to be able to kind of come and go as I please, to do what I need to do, and then to I think that's about it. I mean, I can't delegate this to other people. You know what I mean? I have to be there for this, and then once it's over, then that's it. So I guess I really can't answer that question. You can, because you have money coming in from all these other things. The money that I have coming in from other stuff or whatever, it's all in the same thing. Now, Tommy does the restaurant. He also does stuff in real estate. Mm-hmm. So he is like diversified all over the place.
Let's go.
I'm not like him at all. My bandwidth don't go that way. Like I can only focus on one or two things, and they have to be in the same arena.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Even with my job being a shared living provider, and then working, doing community inclusion stuff like that. That is all based on like that is your own company, like in general. But that's all inclusive in the coaching part. Again, this is all within the same ballpark. So everything I do is right here. You know what I mean? Like nothing is like over here, then I got this thing over there, then I got this other stuff over here. I don't do that. Everything I do is within my ecosystem, but that's me. Like, so, I mean, you can answer it's like, because you're all over the place with that shit.
Yeah.
I am not. And you got ADD, which is even crazier.
Well, and that's it's kind of the salve from an ADD is being able to pivot on high level tasks,
Mhm.
and it keeps me from getting caught up in bullshit. One question real quick. So you've said community inclusion twice. What is community inclusion? For the audience.
So it's like when you work with some people with like disabilities and stuff like that, and instead of them going to a workshop or like a day center, they're just with you. So you guys basically do the same thing. You're just not doing it from a workshop standpoint. They're with you. You go out, you go do your stuff, and then you come back and like do whatever. So it's basically like a workshop within you. So we go out, we go bowling, we go to movies, we go anything that you would think that day centers will go do, we go do the same thing. We just do it together. Okay. So that's what community inclusion is. Plus, I have a young man, or I guess we're the same age, that lives in my home, and I get paid for him as well. So again, like that's. But again, the coaching aspect of what I do has nothing to do with this, but to me, it's all in the same.
Got it.
It's all in the same field. So now, if I were to enter real estate, if I were in to real estate as well, then that'd be something different. And then I can answer his question, but I can't really answer that because I don't do that. You know what I'm saying? So but that's just me. But like I said, I know you do. That's why I asked you that question. You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
And I got one more thing that's on my plate. I can't go into all the details now. I think I've talked to you. I can't go into the details of what it is because a lot of stuff ain't finalized yet. But I'm going to be in the position where I'm going to actually have a team, and I'm be doing a lot of like managing remotely and stuff. And so that's gonna add a new wrinkle to what we got rolling here. But I mean, I got to sit down and write out a handbook and figure out, what I need my sales guys to be able to do and stuff like that. And, my thing is when it comes to sales, I want killers. I want people that go out there. I want sharks. I want people that are hungry for the sale. And so I got to figure out what that actually looks like from that standpoint. And so I'll be announcing some stuff here, in the next couple of weeks, but this is kind of a big one. From the business standpoint, I run a consulting business. And so a lot of my stuff is the consulting side of it. My pivot, and I'm talking about it openly. Last week we talked about the pivot. My pivot was I was trying to pivot away from the done for you services because there's a ceiling that you hit right there without hiring other people. And I kind of lost the other half of my agency when my wife went back to corporate side of things. And so I had to make a pivot and say, okay, I have the bandwidth, the capacity, and knowledge to teach people what I know. And I have a background in, being a social worker and working with families in their darkest parts, and also developing employees to do the same job. And so those are the skill sets I have, in addition to being able to do digital marketing and writing and all the other stuff that comes along with it. And so I have a consulting business, and that is my business. It's I Sell Words, and I have a program called the Unstuck Sessions, and I've tested it out. We launched it about almost a year and a half ago, but I'm dusting off some of the aspects of it. And it is where we sit down and you come to me with a problem that you're trying to scale your business past, and we have a sticking points meeting. We figure out what's the sticking point here and how do we navigate around it and get to the next sticking point. So it's great for people that are just starting out, but it's also great for people that are new to a specific problem.
Mhm.
And they need somebody on the outside to help them navigate past that. And so it encompasses marketing, it encompasses employee management and scaling a business. And so that's my lane. And so that's what I do. And so you see Brian hosts the Unstuck sessions. That's part of my business. And so
Mhm.
that's what I have available. And Fearless and I are working on stuff together too. And so, we're ready to roll it out. We're gonna sit down and talk to y'all about it too. But the reality is, it's putting it. I have the ability with ADHD. I have a really strong ability to compartmentalize things. Not everybody has that.
Mhm.
I could say, this is what I'm on right now. And if I give any focus to any of this other stuff, then I'm down that rabbit hole. And I
See,
cannot be that.
when I do the same thing, I'm an asshole. But okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Well, it's, I sit there like, okay, if I go off on this tangent, if I go off on this thing while I'm working on this, then my work on this is shot. And so that's how I keep locked in and managing it's going to be soon to be three separate businesses. And one of the businesses is a partnership. So my partner handles a lot of the training and stuff. I do the marketing, website design, all the other messaging stuff. That's me and the business side of things. So one of the businesses is a partnership. So I have a great business partner who's amazing with the sales side of stuff and can handle some of the training side of it. So it takes some off my plate. So it's more like 1.5 businesses. And then I'm going to be adding 2. So it'll be, it's going to be 2.5 businesses essentially.
Yeah, the way that I look at that is that if I haven't made anything from anything, I don't even consider it a business. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's just me though. Like if it does not make it, if it hasn't made me anything, I don't consider it a business. If it does not make at least, personally, I would say at least, I don't know. Matter of fact, how about we use that? The thing that the IRS uses, which they don't use, 5,000. I think it's way under that. But if it doesn't make at least, let's say $7,000 a year, to me, it's not even a business or whatever. So, but that's just me. But here's the other question that Tommy had, which is, what's the biggest lesson you've learned from failure, and how did it shape your success?
For me, so it leans into what you just said, because before I pivoted ISL Words, we had and I told Fearless this off air, and it was a confidence thing. The last time I asked for $40,000 from a client, I got $40,000 from a client. That's with ISL Words.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with that was, and this is something I should have learned, was I took that money and it was like, okay, me and my wife working on it. I probably should have I should have outsourced a lot of other stuff. And we did a lot of it in-house to allow us to continue to take on other clients, because that one client took up all of our time. And when we reached the end of our services with that client, I instantly had to hit the ground and go find another client. And the entire thing was so overall traumatizing. And then now I was doing a lot of it like, okay, I got to do some of this, I got to do some of this on my own and stuff. That was a mistake by not delegating, not outsourcing, and then also allowing that to hurt my confidence to the point where I didn't go out and just find a $80,000 client. Because normally that's what I should have done. I should have gone out.
Yeah.
I should have landed that $40,000 contract, and then I should have said, okay, so this is ending. I need to go find an $80,000 one. And I did not have the fortitude at that point. I was so shook, to be honest with you, after dealing with that I didn't go out and pursue. And instantly I said, I don't even know if I want to do this anymore. And so that's where I landed. And a lot of it came from allowing myself to get burnt out and not delegating the way I need to delegate and outsource a lot of my services. And
so do you think that, not to interrupt you, but do you think that maybe it's because you didn't set boundaries before?
100%.
You know what I'm saying? Because that kind of sounds like what that is that you neglected to set boundaries before y'all even got started.
100%.
And so then you can't, you have to, now you're locked in to all this other stuff. And again, all of your bandwidth is on this 40,000, as opposed to, like Grant Cardone says, you don't got, no, we're not going to do all this. Find other people that can do at least most of this while you go out there and go fill that pipeline with a few more of these 40,000s. Then you can start focusing on all that other stuff. Is that what you're talking about?
And that's exactly what it was, because I turned into I can do that. Yeah, we could do that, because I know how to do it. And so when you have a lot of different things you know how to do, it's really easy to turn into I can do that, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that person. And as opposed to saying, this is going to cost extra. This is going to cost more. This is outside the scope of outside the scope of our contract. I was so locked into, okay, let's build goodwill and turn this into a recurring thing, that I didn't go out and find other avenues and outsource it, because a lot of that stuff I could have outsourced. I could have easily hired somebody on Fiverr or something to do some of this stuff and take it off our plates. But I turned into let's do it in-house. And so what happened was, I had an entire plan laid out, but I got so sucked into, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that, that the business plan, the marketing plan I had established and the one I was following ended up going by the wayside, while I got caught up on all these other menial tasks that I should have outsourced for. So that's the lesson I've learned, is delegate, outsource. The stuff I learned back when I was running my shelter still applies to the business world. If I don't have to do it, if I don't have to touch it, if it doesn't require my specific expertise, I need to find somebody else to do it. Because there's a time thing to it, where I have a specific number of hours within the day, because I was also still managing the other side of my other business while I'm doing that. And so by taking this on, it was essentially taking on a full-time job that I didn't have to. And so what I should have done was taken that job and said, okay, now I need to find the people to deliver this creative content. And all I need to do is just check over it to make sure it's right and send it on. And that's what I should have done. But we were so like, okay, let's just get it done. We got to prove it and blah, blah, blah. And I really didn't have shit to prove, to be honest with you, because I had done all this stuff before, and I had amazing outcomes from other businesses before. And I've been making my money before all that with this. But I'm like, I got to prove it and all this other stuff. And I didn't have anything to prove.
Right.
Because after I signed the contract, my proof is over. I'm already locked in. I don't have to prove anything to anybody. But my mental place, I wasn't in, I was like, oh, I got to get this done. I got to show that I can do this. I got to show my artistry. I got to show how creative I am, as opposed to hiring somebody else to do it. So that was the biggest lesson, is whenever you can, as soon as you can, if you have the resources, delegate that task to somebody else. And manage it. Because the other side is, and this is the other side I got into it with staff, is delegating doesn't mean I drop this water bottle in your lap and walk away. Delegating is, here's a task. I need to explain how it gets done and what the outcomes need to be, and when I need it done and what my time frame is. I give it to you, and then if you don't understand it by the time I walk away, that's a failure on my part. I need to stay there and explain it till you get it. And then I need to circle back and check up and see if you need anything for me to do. Because my job as the leader is remove the obstacles out of your way so that you can be successful. And so that's the piece that a lot of people screw up on with the delegation side of it, is I delegated this to you. I dropped this in your lap, but I never follow up. And I never followed up to make sure you understood what I was saying in the first place.
Right.
So that's my part.
Okay. Well, so I think for mine, so as most of us know that I own a co-owner of a bookstore. The one thing that I'm starting to truly understand is that I don't want to own a bookstore. It's not really my thing. And it wasn't really even about that until I was talking to my friend again. And she was like, dude, that was never really your thing. Your thing was always coaching, training, consulting, stuff like that. That's ever since I met you, that's kind of what we talked about. The bookstore thing was just kind of if it happens, it happens. If it don't, it don't. type thing. And I love to read, like love reading. But the one thing that I started to understand is that like I can still love reading. As you can see, all my books, and that's just some of the books that I actually have. But I I I think understanding what it is about the books that I love, which is to read them. I don't even like selling books. Like seriously, like we would have customers come up and they would put the books on the counter. And I'm like, damn, if I'd have known that that book was here, you wouldn't be buying it because it would be at my house right now. You know what I mean? So I just say it's almost like a weed head working at a weed store. You know what I'm saying? Who actually has access to all this stuff. And it's like, you know what? I probably shouldn't be working here. I should probably I should probably be doing something else. Right. And again, I love the experience of the bookstore. I love the experience of having a brick and mortar business. I mean, you've been to my store. I mean, it was absolutely beautiful. Um, and I think that now I'm just, doing this, doing more coaching, consulting, stuff like that. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you, bro. Like, that's where my love is. That's where my passion is. And the bookstore within itself, like, I'm kind of cool. Like, I'll still pay the stuff that I need to pay, that I'm obligated to pay. But as far as anything else pertaining that, I can kind of care less, one way or the other. But the greatest lessons I've learned from failure, pertaining to success in general, is understanding who and what you are.
Mhm.
And again, like I always say, you don't get what you want in life; you get who you are. And I love to read. That's not going to change, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I need to be a conveyor of selling those books. You know what I'm saying? I don't mind being a consumer. I'm fine being a consumer of books, right? That's my thing. I don't need to sell them, no. You see what I mean? But coaching, teaching, training, consulting, stuff like that, that's my thing. I would pay for that shit. Not only do I do it, but I would pay for it. Yes, that's how you and I met.
Right.
Well, not the first time, but second time, that's how we met, was based on that. So everything that I talk about is what I'm willing to do. I don't mind being at a bookstore when I do certain stuff. It just doesn't have to be my bookstore. I'm okay with me having a team of people that where our whole objective is to help other people outside of that, because not everybody's thing is to read, right? But I'm also a huge proponent of encouraging people to learn as much as you possibly can, and that doesn't always mean reading everything. Learn, you can learn from anything, right? And that's where I tell people that my channel, for the most part, is where perspective is everything. Perspective is everything, right? So it's based on how you observe it. How do you look at it? And, just like with you, there's certain questions that, like with your mom's passing, based on some of the stuff that you were doing, right? And again, depending on how old you are, I can kind of understand like where you are mentally when you're putting these things. And again, it's some stuff that you said, but it's also stuff that you didn't say that I also picked up on as well. So again, but that's my thing. Now, whether or not I'm talking to a book, somebody who loves to read books and stuff, that's cool. But I'm only going to get to talk to you for a couple minutes, and then you're going to bugger off. But coaching, teaching, consulting, shit like that, that's something that a person's going to be with you for years. You know what I mean? Like you and I, our relationship is going to consistently keep growing and flourishing and prospering. Whether we make money together or not, we still going to function with each other. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
But then there's other individuals that as soon as this relationship has run its course, I wish you absolutely nothing but the best in life. I bid you adieu. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
And that's how it has to be. And it's not a thing of being any hard feelings and shit. It's just that our relationship has run its course. Thank you, but I'm out.
Right.
That's it. So when I think about success, I think that you need to get your ass kicked. I think that you need to to have your hat snatched and handed back to you. And I think that that's where you find success if you're listening to yourself. And I always tell people that talking to yourself doesn't make you crazy. Not listening to yourself will.
Right.
And I love reading. I love books, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I need to have a bookstore to do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, and not only that, but even when I thought about the bookstore within itself, one of the premises that I kind of came up with early on was, why don't we just sell books that we've actually read? I've read so many books, it's ridiculous. You see what I'm saying? I've like throughout my life, early 20s to I'm 46 years old now. Mm-hmm. I've literally read thousands of books. So why not? Right? Go ahead, my guy. You look like you're itching to say something.
I got an idea.
You see that, Jessica? How I stopped talking and I'm letting him go. Do you see that? Thank you, ma'am.
So I got an idea in line with that, and it's regarding some new information I came across. I've been hearing about it. We're going to talk about it off air because this one is good enough where I don't necessarily want to let this one out all the way yet.
Go ahead.
But this is specific to Fearless and what you just said regarding the passion side of things, plus only wanting to sell books that you've read. So this is a business model that something I've seen play out, and it's something that's kind of taking a lot of the social selling world by storm. So I'm going to run this down to you. We're going to stay on after so I can run this down to you. So let's talk about, because we talked about the scaling side of things and the growth side of things. Hiring. When it comes to hiring, if you read the E-Myth, one of the big things is, and I can attest to this, is write down everything you do on a day-to-day basis and make that the basis of your employee manual. And you must have an employee manual. You must have something for when you bring people into your business, because you have to lay out exactly how it's done if you want to keep fingers on it. But that's an aside. Where was I? We talked about cash flow to make sure the money keeps coming in. It's easier to retain a client than it is to get a new one. It's cheaper to retain a client than it is to get a new one. Y'all got to be aware of that stuff. That early sales and stuff is great, but does this person come back to you? If they come back to you, that's a sign that you got something a little bit more durable. And so a lot of times young businesses, they have somebody who's excited to do something, be with a new business and provide money to a new business. But once the newness wears off, they fade away. You want people that mess with you regardless. And sometimes even people that will stop messing with you, but then see what you're actually doing and see the value of what you're doing and come back to you. Those are your most valuable clients. You need to find a way to keep them happy. That's early stage. That's early stage scaling stuff.
Right.
Identifying who your recurring clients are. Go ahead.
Right. So customer retention as opposed to acquisition.
Right.
It's kind of what we're after, is keeping the people that you already have as happy as possible. My son goes to a martial arts studio here in Bellevue. And that's one of the things that they do, is they're big on customer acquisition. They're big on that. But the one thing that they're not so good at is customer retention. Mm-hmm. And when you sign these contracts, they think that, well, being that I signed this contract, we're good to go. No, you're not. Because what happens is that people, especially if they're under contract and they can't get out of it, they will go around and they will shit all over your name. There's been 4 or 5 families that have come to me and asked me, what do I think about this place? And I tell them the truth. I tell them, my son's been here. His confidence level has scaled through the roof. My son's a black belt now. So I've kind of taken the pressure off of him of, bringing home that black belt. He brought it home. So now it's more of getting his second degree so we could just be done with this thing in general, which is what he wants to do. Awesome. I support it. But I tell the families, I say, if you want to help your child build self-confidence, martial arts is a great place to start, but it's not really an investment for them that you're making. It's more of an investment for you that you're making, because the money that you're going to be putting into this is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It and again, like it's crazy the money that you're going to be putting into this. So if as long as you're willing to make a 4 to 5 year commitment, then yeah, I'd suggest you do it. But if you're cool with letting your kid walk into stuff and walk out of it, this isn't it. And I mean that's with anything. So it's not like I'm talking shit about their thing or not, but their dojo. I'm not. It's just a fact. But the other thing that kind of bothered me a little bit was that our bookstore has been around for just about 2 years now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody at the place knows that that we own a bookstore, which is probably one or two, a couple miles away from the dojo. And the owners of the dojo have never been to the bookstore. Never. Not one time. And I was sitting there thinking about, and I thought about that. And again, it's not trying to be petty or nothing, but it's kind of like, I've put so much money in your pocket that is crazy, right? And we were always paying for this, paying for that, paying for that. But yet instead, when do you ever come in? You ain't even got to buy nothing. Just come in and look at one of the things that the parents of your children that you're teaching or is doing for the community. You're not being a part of it. As a matter of fact, I've even told him on multiple occasions which books to give to children as they're coming in to getting a little older, getting a little wiser. Dude, I'm a certified life coach. Why the fuck wouldn't you listen to me? Like, I know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Like, your wife has a Tesla because of me. I'm the one who sold her on that shit. And I barely even say anything to either one of y'all. So I'm like, y'all come to me and ask about this and the other. But when it comes to molding people's minds, I'm not the guy to do that. Like, you know what to do. And I mean, and I'll give you an example that you can relate to. In Boys Town, I was there, I was there 30 years, no, matter of fact, 33 years ago. 34. There's instructions. There's a system in following instructions. It is when you follow instructions, you look at the person, you say, okay, do the task immediately, and you check back. Now, I still remember that from 33 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I still remember that shit because they drilled it into us. They got all this stuff that they got, And I'm like, bro, they're not going to remember that shit in 33 years. They're not going to remember unless you got to talking about that every single day. When you wake up, that's the first thing that pops into your head. That's when you'll think about it. That's when you'll know it. That Boys Town shit became a part of me. You know what I'm saying? And I got kicked out within like a year and a half of me being there. I was expelled. You know how hard it is to get kicked out of Boys Town? Dude, do you realize how difficult it is to get kicked out of there? They deal with the worst of the worst. So if I'm there and I got kicked out, that's the type of energy I was on. You know what I'm saying? So again, bro, like when it comes to karate and this and the other, he's going to be amazing at that. He has all these belts that I ain't never even heard of. But when it comes to molding a person's mental capacity, bitch, I'm hit.
Mm-hmm.
Like you got a whole dinner out here, and you out here settling for crumbs and shit. Like, well, what is you talking about? Like, I mean, and again, I know that people should not, man, fuck that. Toot your own horn. Because that's, unfortunately, people don't do that. And I'll tell you, if you good at it, to tell everybody how good you are. That's how I look at it. And I'm good at this shit. So if a person who doesn't even know me, let me rephrase that. If people that have never even met me are just handing me thousands upon thousands of dollars from my fucking perspective, then maybe you should listen. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
So,
That shit bothers me. I'm just saying to no end, like it does.
well, and I think it is a matter of that it's transactional. Like the relationship is a
Maybe
transactional.
very, very.
Because I know, like, I can shout out Chris and Sally with CNS heating, cooling, and heating and cooling. I've worked with them for years, and I will only recommend them when it comes to, if somebody needs their air conditioner replaced or their heater's acting up. I will only recommend Chris and Sally because of the level of service where when they come in, they're not trying to upsell you on stuff you don't need. Chris will look you in your face and say, yeah, they told you needed to pay all that. We can fix this. So you don't need to buy a whole new unit from them.
Mm-hmm.
Like honesty, transparency, to the point where it may even cost them, it could cost them money, but they want that level of honesty to make sure that you're not spending your money on stuff you don't need. And,
Right.
and it's, there's a level of engagement that they have with you as somebody somebody that you're hiring to do a job. And so I'll never recommend anybody else besides them. And that's the level of service that you build in that retains customers. And a lot of times businesses neglect that piece of it. They don't go the extra step to show the customers that they matter outside of the transaction that they receive from them. So you hand them the money and then that's it. And there's nothing else there.
Right. And that's all and that's kind of where I'm at with that. And again, like I said, is like I don't need your money.
Mhm.
But support, especially if we're all in the same community, why not?
Right.
Why not function with me the same way that I function with you? I'm not telling you to come in, but again, again, to me, it's kind of like one of those things that when that hubris takes over, when it's like, nah, I know what I need to know. All right, cool. That's
Right.
what's up. But all I'm saying is that when you're in the community, it has to be something more than that, because
Right.
without us, you don't survive.
Right.
Like off top. And I think that once you forget that, I don't give a shit what kind of business you have. It's done.
Right.
There was this other business here in Bellevue. Diane Bruce, the president of Chamber of Commerce, will attest to this. There was this amazing barbecue spot in Bellevue called Mission Barbecue.
I know what you're talking about.
Oh my God, their food was absolutely amazing. I've never had turkey like that. Never. 46 years of being on this earth, I've never had turkey as good as this man's food was. And apparently one drunk night, your boy gets on YouTube. No, he was on Facebook.
I saw that entire thing. That's the definition of Facebook. He crashed out.
He was on Facebook and my boy turned up. And when I tell you that he treated them people like a crash test dummy, he went in, no helmet, no condom, dead as shit. And by the time this man was done talking, did nobody else go back to his store? Nobody.
There's another side to it too, because not only was it the crash out, but I'm in another group with Omaha foodies or whatever, and he was actually harassing and sending messages to other barbecue chains and talking crap to them at all hours of the night too. It was crazy, and it was a completely self-inflicted wound that was completely unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
That's completely unnecessary because he had the cachet, he had the reputation. People were locked into what he was providing, but it was a self-inflicted thing. It's what happens when you don't worry about your repeat customers. You don't worry about how you're presenting yourself. Are people going to want to continue to mess with me after this? Now, there's a level of defining your business. Like let's not get it twisted. There's a level of defining your business, right? And this is going to go into, like, next week we're going to be talking about marketing. But there's a level of defining your business where you define who your ideal clients are and who they are not. and you market to your ideal clients, and people that aren't within that ideal, if they want to mess with you, they'll adjust to be in that group of ideal clients. And then the people who aren't appropriate for your services, and no matter what you do, they're never going to be happy because they were never appropriate for your services from Jump Street. So that's one side of it. But the other side is going on a major crash out and alienating all of your clients. That's not advisable, and that's what happened. And the crazy part about social media is a gateway where you instantly have contact with billions of people at the same time, a potential unlimited number of people at the same time. Right now, we blast this on YouTube. At any given time, we could have billions of people watching it. We don't, but that's how it goes. And so the danger with social media for a lot of young business owners, like if you're just starting, if you're looking to pivot from the side hustle to the full-time job, is you can absolutely obliterate your business with one overly personal tweet or one overly personal post, or going on a drunken tirade on social media in front of God and everybody else. And so that's what happened. So bro had built up his client base and destroyed it within 5 or 10 minutes. But there was also other stuff going on with that piece of it. And it was detrimental to his business, and it was a solid business. So take it at what it is. So I'm going to move ahead a little bit. Making sure the cash flow comes back in. It's cheaper to retain clients to gain new ones. Setting your prices, the prices, positioning, conversation. And I even struggle with this sometimes, just because, and I've had, multi-$1,000 days and stuff like that, but it's something that I even struggle with occasionally. Setting your price at a point that allows you to continue to do more business is important. And a lot of times, if your service is so good, the price becomes immaterial if what you provide is that good, or somebody wants it enough. And for new business owners, that's a piece that they struggle with. And like I said, I've even struggled with it, and I've had $40,000 days. So setting your price is a key consideration, especially when you're starting out, especially when you're looking at moving from the side hustle to the full-time business, because just because you're making a full-time income in a part-time basis doesn't mean that you're going to double that income when you go full-time. You're going to have to scale up. You're going to have to scale up. You might have to evaluate what your prices are. And considering the fact that we're going to be in this protracted trade war, if your business requires materials, you have to build that into the cost of what you're charging customers. And everything goes into, all your overhead goes into the price of what you're charging customers. All your maintenance goes into what you're charging customers. And so a lot of the pricing stuff is important to get a firm grasp on when you're looking from pivoting from a part-time thing to a full-time thing, because going full-time will not automatically double your income.
Gotcha.
So that's what it is. I was continuing on with the entire crash out about Mission Barbecue, bro.
I heard you.
It was astonishing to watch, and anyway.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't there, but like I did actually go back and read some of the stuff. But I also remember because he was talking to Sarah Milligan, who they own. What do they own? They own, man, what is that store? Dip Cravers.
Dip Cravers, yeah.
Dip Cravers. And apparently he said something, I guess Matt was talking to him, and then he said something about Sarah that pissed Matt off, and then they just kind of started going back and forth with it. And I was just like, dude, like Sarah's like mad cool. Right. And like every time I would go up there, Sarah would be there. You know what I'm saying? So like I know for a fact that that she was that she bought into their food, that she did this and the other. It's like, dude, like that's kind of like, why would you shit on the hand that feeds you? You know what I mean? Especially somebody who's actually that really messes with you and who's just trying to help.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, and I was talking to Diane about the same thing, It's like, dude, like they didn't have a phone, they didn't have this, they didn't have that. It's like, dude, like, bro, people want your stuff, people want your food, but there's no way to get a hold of you. And like, I mean, it was just a lot of like, I'm like, man, like, which is crazy to me because to me that basically shows like you can have the, like I said before, you can have the greatest product, you can have the greatest service, but no, you can have the greatest product, but if your service or your customer service sucks, dude, I don't give a shit how good you are, bro. That is going to kill a lot of your business.
Yep.
It's going to kill. Here's the thing, and Diane and I were just joking about it. We were saying that even if the business was that, like his customer service was horrible, I was like, can you talk shit to me after you give me my food?
Right.
I'm saying, let me get my food first, and you can say whatever you got to say.
Yeah. And that's how I feel like ain't nobody's. Here's my thing, and this is just me as a business owner who's also a consumer. Ain't nobody's food good enough to take your abuse. I got a smoker in my backyard.
Right.
I can throw anything on that smoker and it'll come out amazing. And I don't have what is it? Black Thought said this: just because somebody gives you shit doesn't mean you have to take it.
That part.
I'm not, nobody's food or nobody's product or service is good enough for me to come in and feel like I'm being talked down to or insulted or belittled or anything, man. I'll go somewhere else or I'll go create the experience on my own. And and sometimes a business can have success despite itself, despite its worst impulses. They can still have success, and that's an enviable position to be in, where your business is so rock solid. Your demand is so rock solid that people will put up with anything, but they won't put up with anything indefinitely. And so you got to tighten that up. And so it's unfortunate, and you never want to see somebody go out of business. And I've seen businesses do that. You never want to see that happen. But when you're crashing out on social media and basically telling thousands of people, well, you don't ever have to come to my restaurant again, they're gonna say, all right, bet.
Say less, cousin.
Yeah.
All right. I won't be back. No problem, sir.
And that's crazy, because I've done marketing for restaurants, and restaurants are one of the hardest things to maintain. Even if you're doing great, even if your clients love you, even if your customers, you have huge lines and everything, you could still go out of business, because all it takes is some small permutation in, you buying the food, sourcing the food, somebody's price gets raised, it could throw everything out of whack. And so when you have one that's making money like that, it's crazy where it's successful for all those years. It seems to be hubris to do all that stuff. But like I said, I don't know, bro, personally. I just saw what happened on social media and it was wild.
Yeah, it was. Yes, it was. But man, and that's one of those trial and errors. Hopefully he comes back, hopefully with a better attitude than what he had before. And, we can hopefully kind of do something with it. But if he doesn't, then he doesn't. And you know what? Eventually somebody's going to come and have some really good food, and homeboy just going to lose out on that shit, bro.
Yep. That's what happens. So, all right. So we've gone through a lot of.
Oh my God. Yeah, we got stuff to kind of do over here. So
we go through a lot of. That's what I was about to, we're wrapping up now. So we appreciate y'all that have tuned in. Next week we're going to be back here at 10:30. We're going to be talking about marketing stuff. And a lot of it has to do with marketing for businesses that are getting started, but also you're going to get insights from us about marketing. And so that's what we're going to have on next week's stream. Tune in. Be editing this one up, so you're going to see clips of it all across social media, but we're always here to ask questions. So hit us up on Facebook or whatever. So I'm wrapping it up. I'm hustling through. I'm Brian.
Fearless here.
Talk to y'all later. Peace.
Deuces.